Hunters television show. We're going to have a blast tonight, guys. This is going to be a lot of fun. A lot of fun. Hey, Virgil, good to see you here. And, we are about 15 seconds or 35 seconds away from kicking things off. Remember, a great way to support this show is to go to facebook.com/the SOR Vault. Grab yourself some new swag. Also, ladies and gentlemen, our good friend Geraldine Orozco wants me to remind you that you can take a journey with her this weekend, embody the physical, mental, and emotional aspects of the 0 Point at the Higher Self Expo featuring Geraldine, Daniel Winter, Lori Ladd, Zane Daniels. It is Saturday, January 23rd, 7 a.m. It starts Pacific time, 10 a.m. Eastern. So make sure you check it on out at higherselfexpo.com. 5 seconds, guys. We're going to have a great show. Here we go. Let's have some fun tonight. We deserve it. Central British Columbia to you listening around the world. This, my friends, is Spaced Out Radio. I am your host, Dave Scott, sitting in the captain's chair of SOR headquarters. We welcome you to tonight's show on our terrestrial affiliates around North America, digitally on TalkStream Live, KPNL, and Revolution Radio. If you want to take a listen to our archives, they are free for you by going to youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Just do me the favor, hit that subscribe button. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio and on Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show. Our website is spacedoutradio.com, where we have a plethora of features for you, including Rockin' Out to Bumblefoot, reading up on Captain Shirk's SOR Newswire, and much more. Tonight's show is brought to you by Chive Charities. Help make the world 10% happier by visiting Chive Charities today. You can find them on our website. Now, we're going to get a little ghosty tonight as we welcome the return of Merle in 2021 and Ghosts of the Great White North. Now, you should all be familiar with Merle by now, who's a paranormal investigator from near Vancouver, British Columbia, and his team, the Paranormal Road Trippers, which includes his lovely lady, the Draw. Anyways, tonight, we bring in a special guest from the television series Ghost Hunters. We are proud to be joined by Brandon Alvis. Brandon is a paranormal technician of the team. He is on the chase for the haunt, as he's investigated nearly all the top hot spots in the United States. His passion for learning about the paranormal is second to none. And add to it, he's a pretty good dude. And sometimes he takes off his ball cap, too. We're just glad to have him back on Spaced Out Radio. Believe it or not, it's been like 4.5 years since we've had Brandon on, and I am pumped to have him back. Then at the bottom of hour number 3, I will bring you the SOR Newswire, brought to you by Paranoia Magazine. Merle, welcome to 2021 on Spaced Out Radio, buddy. How are you?
Chat.
It's good to have you here, my friend. And you know, Merle and I are pretty close guys. And we're glad that you're here, and we're glad to have you back for this segment. And thank you so much. And Brandon, it's been a long time since we've had you on Spaced Out Radio, but damn it, man, I remember the last time I had you on. You were pretty shy. You were somebody who was really pushing to take paranormal and ghost investigation very seriously. And man, here you are. All of a sudden, you landed on Ghost Hunters, man. Congratulations for that.
Yeah, thanks, man. Again, thanks for having me on. It's a pleasure to talk to you again.
Yeah, it's a pleasure to have you here as well. And, gentlemen, we're going to talk a lot of ghosts tonight, because the one thing that it doesn't matter what is happening in the world, we got ghosts. It doesn't matter if it's election time, if it's COVID, if it's anything going on, any problems in the world, the ghosts just don't stop. And Brandon, because, here you are, you're a special guest tonight, we'll start off with you tonight. Going way back in time, my friend, what made you get interested in seeking the unknown of the paranormal?
My journey into the paranormal began at a young age. In 1995, I lost my oldest brother to cancer, and in 2004, I lost another brother to suicide. So that kind of sent me on my journey into the unexplained. I never really had an experience, per se. It was never about having a ghostly encounter. It was more about having to learn about the possible existence of a life after death at a young age and going from there. So I actually never stepped foot in the field until I read as much literature as I possibly could on the subject. And I reached out to various professionals from technical industries that could help me remain grounded in scientific principle. And in 2006, I founded the American Paranormal Research Association to investigate historical locations throughout the United States.
Brandon, this is the first time that I heard that you lost your brother, or your two brothers, one to cancer, one to suicide. When you go into a paranormal investigation now, is it personal for you because you've lost so much?
It's always personal, not just because I lost my brothers, but just to try and go out there and, be a part of what I call the final frontier in a way. We've had such exploration of the ocean and space. I think that last final frontier is life after death. And, to me, it's personal because I want to step out of the shadow of pseudoscience, and I want to take this field into a credible field instead of being looked at by entertainment and looked at by the scientific and the public community as being a farce or being something that's kind of made fun of a lot. I would rather, step out of the shadow of pseudoscience and really talk about the scientific aspect of the paranormal.
Brandon, and I think that's a solid answer because, over the years as this show has really morphed into whatever it is today, the one thing that I have noticed when I started Spaced Out Radio 6 years ago, I was a big fan of the paranormal. I was a big fan of EVPs, a big fan of the television shows that, there wasn't as many as there is today on television. But the big thing is I was really into it. And I can honestly say, much like the NBA killed basketball for me when they left Vancouver, I've noticed that, and maybe it's just me, that the paranormal has so many people in it, and without sounding rude, who really don't know what they're doing. They're weekend warriors who go on social media and talk a big game. They talk tough. They talk like they're know-it-alls. And it just put a very sour taste in my mouth because, believe it or not, out of all the guests that we have on this show, if anybody bounces or doesn't call us back, it's usually a paranormal team of some sort. And it put a real bad taste in my mouth. And I don't like that because I love ghost hunting. I think it's incredible. I want to know, as someone who suffers from extreme anxiety about whether or not there's life after death, because I kind of like living, I want to know the answers, man. So how have you been able to separate yourself in the last 4 years to go from a person who is, getting really hardcore into this and sees a vision to becoming seeing that vision really take off and now becoming one of the stars of one of the premier television programs in Ghost Hunters?
You're exactly right with your statement. I mean, there's an oversaturation in the field for sure. There's a lot of people out there that just go out and mimic what they see on television, and that's for pure entertainment purposes only, which can be very dangerous, not only for the places they're investigating, some of the clients that they're dealing with, but for themselves. But for me, it's all about remaining unbiased and sticking to scientific principle and really listening to the panel that I put together in 2006. I've been very lucky to work with some of the most brilliant scientists in the world, one of which is a man named Dr. Harry Clore. He's the only person in history to receive 2 PhDs simultaneously in any discipline. And he's a colleague and a mentor and someone I talk to all the time that really helps me remain grounded in trying to find answers and true answers. But you're right, it's oversaturated. There's a lot of nonsense that goes on in the field and a lot of mimicking what people see on television, and that's very detrimental.
How have you, on a personal level, never mind the celebrity aspect of everything, because the minute you get on television, all of a sudden people elevate you to a whole different stature. We'll get into that in a minute here. But how have you been able to stay very level and very focused with knowing that there's this paradrama all over the place?
It's all about the research, and that's what matters to me. That's the whole reason I got involved in this field. I never wanted to be on TV. It was never my goal. It was all about that personal connection, like we were just speaking about before, about the loss of my brothers and about the possibility of life after death. When I said I read as much literature as I possibly could on the subject, I read everything from scientific investigation to psychic phenomena, mediumship, everything. I looked into every aspect. But it's all about the research and remaining unbiased, going into a location and trying to find natural explanations first, and trying to find empirical evidence and factual data second. And once we collect that data, we have that analyzed by a third party from a technical industry. And it's all about finding answers and finding those answers to what I'm personally curious about.
Do you think we're closer? Are we closer?
Absolutely.
And if
Absolutely.
so, how?
Well, I've been very lucky, again, to work with brilliant scientists and engineers and medical doctors. And I think that we made a tremendous breakthrough, funny enough, on season 2 of Ghost Hunters. And that's not because, it was a TV show. It was because it was 16 years of research came together in that moment. And having that platform with Ghost Hunters gave me an opportunity to implement some really heavy-hitting scientific equipment and talking to some very brilliant people from outside the field. And we started to see a possible connection of the possible mechanics behind of what we perceive to be manifestations of ghosts, hauntings, entities, whatever you want to call it. And we did that with a camera referred to as the EMCCD camera. And what that camera does is it records single photon events, and it was created by the digital imaging scientific community to record single photon events. And when I reached out to Dr. Harry Clore and the various professionals that I consult, I asked them from their professional opinion, if entities, ghost hauntings are real, how would they manifest here on Earth, on our plane? And the theory was thrown out that it could be photon events. And I was provided this piece of equipment, and we collected photon events in a said haunted location. And to this day, those photon events cannot be explained through scientific means.
A lot of people, and I question this on my own if I go out, I would I don't consider myself a researcher or an investigator, but every now and again, I've worked with enough people where if I need to go help someone, I have no problem doing that, but I got to ask you, there's a real fine line between the science and the pseudoscience of the intuition that goes along with it. And there has to be, at least in my opinion, you might disagree or agree, there has to be a balance between both, because we don't really know where this all comes from or where it's going or how it even happens. So how do you balance the technology from your own intuition, your own feelings, and maybe those of intuitives that you trust or distrust or what have you?
Well, everyone has intuition of some kind, right? Everyone has that sense going into a building and feeling a change in the environment or feeling something that's just not quite the same in other buildings, right? But for me, it's always about data and empirical evidence, trying to find data that can be tested by a third party. So going into a location, investigating an eyewitness claim or trying to help out a client, it's always about using the proper technology from third parties, not built for ghost hunting, not built to try and find the paranormal. We want to use technology that's adapted and utilized in other industries that can give us that data and empirical evidence. And that's it. Intuition's one thing. I know it's you can go into a location, have an experience, but if you don't back that up with evidence or data, it's just an experience at that point. So to me, it's all about the technology. It's all about remaining as grounded as possible, unbiased, and using the scientific method.
I'm sure with Merle, when he decides that he wants to talk, we'll actually get into that technical side of everything, because he's much more advanced on that as I am. But I'm curious for you, and I mentioned this just a couple of minutes ago, a couple of years ago when you were brought on for the reinvention of the television series Ghost Hunters. I'll be honest with you, I was very proud to all of a sudden say, hey, I know that guy, and he's a good dude, and yeah, we're Facebook friends, and all you go through that, but I got to ask you, on a personal level, take the ghost hunting right aside, on the personal level, how has it affected you going from paranormal investigator to now television star? Because I know a lot of people, and I've asked this question of others, both private and public, that one of their biggest complaint is the amount of criticism you take now because you made it.
Yeah, it can be tough, especially on social media. It's definitely tough because a lot of people, like, Dave, as you know, I was on the show, 4 years ago, I believe. I've been doing this for 16 years. And the way I conduct my research today is no different than it was 16 years ago at the very beginning. And the way I talk and the way I conduct myself and the way I go about my research hasn't changed in any way, shape, or form. But, once you have that platform of being on a show like Ghost Hunters, which is, I guess is the creme de la creme of all paranormal shows, the one that really started it all, a lot of people start to criticize, like you said. There's definitely a big spotlight on you at that point, and people want to nitpick that in a way. And a lot of people think that we're all actors or we were handpicked because we have reactions to the camera or whatever it may be. There's so many different beliefs out there, but it could definitely be tough. But I would stand my ground, stay with my beliefs, and never change my research.
I respect that about you because I was listening to a previous podcast that you were on, and you played hardball with Ghost Hunters. You're like, I'm doing it like this. This is how I'm going to investigate. I'm scientific based. If you don't like it, well. And then they took you. Like, I was like, wow, that's cool. But you're true. You didn't sell out how people say you did you, and it paid off.
How do you respond to that? Were you able to hear Merle first off?
I did, yeah, I did.
Okay.
It's true, and that's one thing that's really funny because when Pilgrim Films, that produces Ghost Hunters, reached out to me, I was not interested at first, and I didn't know it was Ghost Hunters at the time. But I was approached about doing a TV show, and the first thing I asked, once I really started to have serious conversations with him, was, am I going to be able to conduct the research I've been conducting for the past, at that point, 14 years? And they said, yes, that's why we want you on the show. We want someone that's scientific minded, that's going to go in and actually help these clients. We're making a show that's based off of what you do. You're not conforming to what we're trying to do, which was refreshing and amazing. And it's been fantastic. And to be able to go out and work with everyone at Pilgrim Films and A&E and everyone on the show, it's been amazing to be able to have that platform and to utilize the techniques, the ethics, the protocol, the methodology I've been developing for so many years, and to be able to actually put that into play on a larger scale.
I got to ask you, in regards to that, you're doing things your own way, and when it comes to television, it's not like that all the time. I mean, I have kind of interviewed for a couple of television shows, and I think once they realize that I got a face for radio, it really doesn't work, right? But that's a completely different story. I mean, but when it comes to television, they want you to play or portray a certain role or a certain type of character, because in the end, entertainment sells. It's not about what the programming is. It's about the entertainment that sells advertisement. And paranormal is hot. UFOs are hot. Bigfoot is hot. And they're making a ton of money on this programming through commercial advertisement. So I'm very curious, because one of the biggest concerns I had with Ghost Hunters in the first time around is watching them go to haunted locations to prove whether or not it's haunted. And I always thought that was a little odd, because why go there if you already know it's haunted and other people have had experiences? Whereas someone like you, you're about trying to find the solutions, whether it's a haunt, whether it's about helping people or in their own homes or wherever it may be. So how have you been able to blend that to become a little bit more intuitive with what you are trying to investigate?
It came together very naturally, which is awesome. It being put in that situation, which could be a very stressful situation, actually. But to be able to go out there and then say, hey, here you go. Cameras are rolling. Conduct the investigation. And it worked out. Luckily, who knows? I mean, they could have put me in that situation, and my style and the way I conduct myself and my research maybe couldn't have worked out. Who knows? But it worked out. We got lucky in that regard. But I was put in the situation and was lucky enough to work with Grant Wilson as well, who is someone I looked up to for many years. And to be able to see how things work behind the scenes was actually really refreshing. And to be able to go out there and lend a hand and give my ideas and really help in the situations, especially with clients and trying to find natural explanations to some of the things that they're experiencing or they thought they were experiencing, was fantastic. So it was fortuitous, I guess you could say.
What's the biggest misconception that paranormal investigators have out there about you TV guys?
Oh, that we ham it up for the camera. I can only speak for myself, of course. But I don't do that. That's not my game. That's not the way I conduct myself. But again, I can see why people have that misconception because there's so many shows. I think probably 99% of them are, complete, fraudulent frauds. A lot of frauds out there. Sad to say it. But a lot of people just want to get on TV for the fame aspect. They don't really care about the research. And some of those guys that started out early and got on TV because of the research no longer care about the research. And I guess they just want to take a paycheck, which is sad. So it could be tough. But again, it's all about sticking to your guns. It's all about doing what's right for the field and the genre. And that's something I try to stay by.
We've got 3.5 minutes before we have to go to break at the bottom of the hour. Goes to the Great White North with Merle, and from Ghost Hunters, Brandon Alvis. Brandon, you said right before you weren't a fan of a lot of the television programming that was on the air, and you were hesitant about joining this cast. Where did that change for you? Because I'm going to assume, and please correct me if I'm wrong, but I think I've talked to enough people who've been on television now in the paranormal realm and UFO realm to know you're not getting rich off of this, okay? But there's this misconception that the minute you are there, probably because Zach Bagans has one hell of a contract, all right, that because now that you're on television that, you're a six figures, potentially almost seven figures kind of guy. I mean, it isn't like that at all. It is hard work for a very little pittance.
Absolutely. It's tough. That's why you have to love what you do, right? You have to actually care about the genre and care about the research because, like you said, you're not getting much for the extended amount of travel, putting yourselves into some actually dangerous situations at times, being away from your family. It's very hard. It's very tough. So, when I first talked to Pilgrim Films and I talked to A&E, and when they started to tell me that they wanted the style of my research and wanted me to conduct these investigations the way I conducted with APRA over the many years, that's really what convinced me. It was an opportunity to further my research, an opportunity to have that platform to really, hopefully, try and take this to the next level and step out of the shadow of pseudoscience. And I think that we've made some pretty big breakthroughs.
Away from the ghost hunting, and the television aside, let's just be honest. You carry a Sharpie with you now because you're going to be recognized. What color Sharpie do you carry with you? Be honest.
It's all about the selfies these days. So,
how many selfies are you doing a day for people who recognize you? Or maybe not a day, a week, let's say.
Oh, it's since before the pandemic it was different. Now it's not so often. I mean, every once in a while with the mask at the grocery store, people still recognize me, which is funny. I think it's probably the hat. It's probably what gives me away. But funny enough, I was at the grocery store a couple months ago, and I'm standing there, and a guy approaches me, and he says, "Hey, what's up?" He said TV alumni, and the guy was on Naked and Afraid, which is kind of funny. So it was kind of funny to bump into the guy in my small little town here in Ventura, California, and talk to him for a bit. And ever since we met, we've connected on social media, and we hang out every once in a while. So it's pretty funny.
Very cool. I tease in a very polite Canadian way here because, I know that, I always bug Merle that I said, if you ever get your TV show, Merle, I said, I'm buying you the Sharpies, right? You're gonna be famous up here in Vancouver. But with that fame, what do you like about it? We got about 30 seconds.
I love the appreciation for the research. I love the fact that people see that we're trying to find, real world solutions to some of these cases and seeing that we're actually out there to help people. I think that's always gratifying to see when people understand what we're trying to do.
That is awesome. Merle, hopefully we'll get to hear from you in the second half hour because you are part of this show too. I just want to remind you.
You always do the first half an hour. I just sit, listen, and write down notes of questions for later.
All right.
You're very energetic.
Well, we're glad that you're here and breathing. Breathing is always good. Merle is breathing with us as he joins us every month for Ghosts of the Great White North, and we're proud to have special guests tonight from the hit television series Ghost Hunters, Brandon Alvis. We'll be back talking more ghost stories next on Spaced Out Radio. All right, guys, we're clear. That was
You're the hype guy.
Solid first half hour. Solid broadcasting, Merle. Right there. Solid broadcasting by you. Couldn't even figure out how to turn his mic on. That's our Merle.
I tried mounting it differently. Now I have to eat it again.
Yes.
Yeah.
Make changes.
That went quick. That was cool.
Yeah. Nice and fast. What kind of wine you got there?
Nice little Chardonnay.
Very nice.
Yeah.
Very nice. See, when you get the TV gig, you go to that vino stuff, you know. No, I'm teasing.
It definitely helps. I'm in California. It's not far from Napa either, so it's readily available. That's for sure.
One of our listeners is from your area.
Oh, really? Ventura?
Yeah, because Joe actually sent me a message, and he's like, "Hey, is Brendan really from Ventura County?" I'm like, yeah. Joe actually has some really, really wild shit that happens at his house.
Really?
Wild.
Okay.
UFOs, Bigfoot. Like he just sent me a picture tonight. He goes, all he said was night and day. Daylight, all you see is deer grazing in front of the trees. Nighttime, you see two red eyes staring at you from about 12 feet off the ground, dude.
That's not freaky.
Yeah, he's got some weird shit there happening.
A lot of UFO stuff out here. We have a naval base not too far, and there's a lot of strange things going on around here.
Yeah, he always sends me pictures of the U-2 flying over. He always catches the U-2, and I'm like, that's awesome. That's awesome. You know.
Yeah, I've seen some pretty strange things in the sky out here. That's for sure. I've never been a big UFO researcher. You know, yeah. I definitely believe, but being out here, I've seen a few strange things for sure.
Oh yeah.
I wasn't a believer until I saw one outside of Wolf Creek in Oregon.
Oh, okay.
My girlfriend and I were looking up. Well, she was looking up at the sky, and it was silent. It's pretty close to us, but it was black, like a triangle, and it just had like really faint lights. Well, they're red. It was odd. No sound.
That's weird.
Yeah.
It just hovering and then left.
Yeah, one time when we were doing the show, Joe was actually texting live in the chat room how there was a black triangle hovering over his house.
Jeez.
Yeah. Yeah, it's nuts. Nuts. Good stuff happening there. When you get that kind of woo, that's the kind of place I want to live, man.
That's right.
Yeah. But, I'm going to hit you up right off the bat here when we come back from break, because I know you've kind of been on hiatus since COVID, and, you know, just kind of get around to how COVID has really affected what you do with the television show and your investigation and all that kind of stuff, because, you know, I don't think a lot of people understand that, you know, and that's kind of why I was leading in at the right at the tail end there about, you know, you guys don't make a lot of money. You don't.
Right.
You know, I mean, I wouldn't even want to see your paycheck, I'll be honest with you. You know, but, you know, I just want to touch on that. I hate to sound vague, but I don't like to give away anything, because what happens is if I ask you now and I get into the conversation, I will literally forget by the time I go on the air. So, yeah. All right. Let's go here. We've got about where are we? About a minute here, guys. About a minute. Thank you to Raz Grizz from Fort McMurray, giving us the big super chat to kick things off tonight. Really do appreciate that from my fellow Canuck. And, yeah, good way to support the show. Don't forget, if you're brand new, hit that thumbs up, hit the thumbs down, hit the thumbs sideways. But main thing, hit that subscribe button. We'd really appreciate it. Trying to get to 10,000 before, or we're at 10,000. God damn it. 15,000 before my birthday on May 24th. I also want to remind all you guys, because my good friend Geraldine Orozco asked me to do this. It's this weekend on Saturday, the Higher Self Expo. And you can go to higherselfexpo.com, watch Geraldine, Daniel Winter, Lori Ladd, Zane Daniel, and more. It's free to attend. You just go to the website. Starts at 7 a.m. Pacific, 10 a.m. Eastern this Saturday, so make sure you check it on out, the higherselfexpo.com. We're 10 seconds away from getting things going here, so we'll be right back here, guys. Second half hour of Spaced Out Radio is now underway. My name is Dave Scott. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us. I really do appreciate it. Want to remind you that if you've missed portions of this show or others, check out our free archives by going to youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Just do me the favor, hit that subscribe button. Our website is spacedoutradio.com, where we have a plethora of features for you, including rocking out to Bumblefoot and reading up on Captain Shirk's SOR Newswire. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio and on Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show. We continue on with Ghosts of the Great White North. We got Merle here from the Paranormal Road Trippers and a good friend of this show from the hit television series Ghost Hunters. We got Brandon Alvis. Gentlemen, welcome back.
Hello, Dave.
Hey, Merle. Well, at least we got Merle's words out of this half hour early.
Said something. Okay, I'm done.
All right, good. Brandon, thank you for joining us again. Normally at this time of year, I mean, you're probably out getting ready to film another season. However, since this damn COVID hit, and, we're not going to get into the politics of it at all or not, because there is we got the believers and the non-believers, and I don't want to play that game, but it affected your job. Your job is ghost hunting on television, and it affected everything that you've done. How has it really, affected you and what you do for your shooting schedule for the show?
It's completely halted us in every way, shape, or form, unfortunately. Not only because it would be, pretty dangerous to put an entire crew in a situation where they could possibly get sick or go into people's homes, they can possibly get sick, but also it's not financially possible at the moment. Some states, you have to quarantine for 2 weeks, so putting up an entire crew of 30-plus people in a hotel for 2 weeks alone is going to be astronomical when it comes to funds. So it's completely halted us, and we haven't done anything since season 2, but hopefully once things clear up and it all gets figured out, we'll be back out there. How do you keep in tune with what you're doing? Because like anything, it doesn't matter whether it's sports, whether it's paranormal investigation, anything you do. If you haven't done it for a while, you get rusty. How have you been able to stay fresh while staying locked down? Well, one thing that's been kind of a blessing with this whole situation is the fact that Mustafa Gadalari and I, Mustafa from the show, have written a book that'll be released through Llewellyn, published this year. Not only that, we've put together a web series where we're going back to case logs dating back to 2006, where we're going through and kind of commentating on how we conducted investigations and how the methodology, the protocol, the ethics worked for us and what led to the most significant data. And that's something we've been doing. And with research, it never ends, right? You don't go to a location and be like, oh, I got the EVP, it's over, haunted, see ya. No, you have to analyze that data and continue to look into that location. And you can even do that from, looking at case logs, not actually having to be there, going through and really breaking down all the information you've collected. So that's what we've been doing during this whole COVID period. So for the television show, in regards to, you don't know when you're going to come back. Everything is day by day. Does the network stay in touch with you guys about what's going on, or are they just about, you know what, we'll call you when we see what the final numbers are once we're allowed to get going? It's tough. We talk to the network a lot about other things, but not really about the show per se. They actually had us do AlienCon not long ago. I think it was in October. So we talk to the network frequently. A&E's fantastic. I mean, one of the best television networks I've ever worked with. And they're really great at promoting their talent and people associated with the network. So, but when it comes to, specifics about the show, that's kind of an internal conversation between the production company and the network itself. Interesting. Okay.
So, in the end, do you know if you're going back?
I'm not sure. I'm not sure. I'm not sure if A&E is going to continue with the paranormal programming. I don't know if they're doing that anymore. I know they've really gone the true crime route. That's something they like and something that they stuck to and works for them very well. And I know that now you have Travel Channel and Discovery doing this whole Discovery Plus thing. I did see the other day through popculture.com that Discovery Plus did retain the rights to stream our show, A&E's Ghost Hunters, and I think the back catalog as well for the original Ghost Hunters. So I'm not sure what that says, but it's nice to know that there's going to be more people seeing the show and really seeing what we've done.
But don't you feel a little bit up in the air, like your future is being dictated, and it's completely out of your control, whether it's COVID, whether it's the networks, I mean,
yeah.
I don't know, and I'm not about to pry into your private life, but I'm pretty sure you're married. You may have a family. You may have to have a daytime job in order to keep food on the table and a roof over your house. And in the meantime, this dream that you're living of being in the national spotlight for paranormal, which very few get. I mean, you got to take advantage of that when it happens. But do you feel like you're almost hanging in the wind? And you don't know which way you're going to float back down to earth?
Exactly. Yeah, it's tough. It's very tough. And, I don't think that the show will be back on A&E. I don't. But you never know what's going to happen with the series. I mean, Ghost Hunters is a huge brand, and Pilgrim Films does a great job producing the show. So it is tough not knowing what's going to happen. So that's why, Mustafa and I went ahead with, getting a publishing deal with Llewellyn and publishing a book as well as doing this new web series. So who knows what the future holds, but one thing I do know is here in 2021 that we will have a book published, which I'm very excited about.
Brendan Alvis from Ghost Hunters is our guest tonight, and we got Merle. I think Merle is about to speak, people. Hold on. I'm going to go silent.
My hand goes up. No, I'm kidding. I was just going to say, I really enjoy Formula of the Haunting. I've watched them all, and it's a really good show. Also, you've been working on a documentary about Cemetery Park. Can you tell us about it?
Yeah, absolutely. That's a film that's been a couple years in the making, actually, and it's a very, very sad story, honestly. A lot of people think it's paranormal related, but it's really not. It's actually more of a true crime story. In the 1960s, the city of Ventura, California, illegally demolished a 7-acre pioneer cemetery and actually removed all the headstones and left the bodies in what is now a dog park. And the show really talks about the illegalities associated with that, one man's journey to fight against the city and try to right the wrongs of what the city did in the 1960s, and really exposing the corruption at that time, which we know in the 60s there was a lot of things going on. But what happened here in Ventura is a very special case and something that's really affected a lot of families here in Ventura. There's many people that still to this day can't go visit their loved ones because they have no idea where they're buried, because the city of Ventura wanted a really nice piece of real estate. And it's a very heavy-hitting documentary. I was very lucky enough to actually get into the Santa Barbara International Film Festival a couple years back, which is a huge film festival. It was my first feature documentary, so that was an honor. But I can't wait to get that out to the rest of the world. It's a very sad story, but it's a story I think that everyone needs to know because it happens all around the world, especially here in the United States. It happens more often than not, and I think it's something that really needs to be exposed.
When do you think we'd be able to see it? I know in one of your other podcasts you said 2021, but do you know when?
Just like everything else with COVID, we'll see.
Fair enough. Makes sense.
There are a few distributors interested in the project, but as of right now, with all the financial situations with companies and whatnot, it's everyone's kind of on pause. So let's see what happens here in the next 6 months.
Brendan, I think you bring up a very good point about this docuseries that you were doing with this dog park that's a former cemetery. And I'll be honest with you, just hearing that, I'm actually kind of disgusted by that. I mean, God, go to the forest. There's lots of trees, lots of trails, lots of open area. But, city slickers move in, and that's what happens. I see it in my little hometown here, how it's changed in the last year and a half, 2 years, because of real estate prices near Vancouver and being very cheap to come up here and live mortgage free. It's enticing for a lot of people. But That being said, the one thing that I'm really impressed with you doing this story, and it's as important as the story is, I think it also tells a lot of ghost hunters out there that you don't need to go to Waverly Hills or Alcatraz or Gettysburg or wherever you may want to go, as tourist attractions, when some of the best stories are right in your own backyard, but you haven't taken the time to learn your town's history. Your thoughts?
Exactly. No, you're 100% right. And, that's one thing that Mustafa and I talk a lot about, not only in the upcoming book, but in our web series now, is the fact that history is one of the most important aspects of paranormal research. And we talk about the formula of a haunting, and we believe there's very specific things that lead to a haunting. And history is first and foremost in that formula. And it's something we have to recognize. And no matter where you're from, no matter where you live, there is a significant piece of history in that area. And a lot of times it's really undiscovered history or not widely spoken about history. So, if you're in your own local town, your small place, could be a small village, it could be a big city, whatever it may be, I guarantee you there's something you don't know about that place that'll be highly intriguing and something I think even people outside of your area would want to know.
And you know what? On a poor example of this, one of the hobbies I love to do when I get an opportunity is geocache. I don't know if you know what that is, but for people who do not know, it's literally a scavenger hunt game via GPS. Flat earthers don't play it because there's no satellites up in the sky. But nonetheless, different conversation. But one of the things that I learned about geocaching, and I started geocaching 11 years ago, and I lived in the same hometown for 25 years. And I could not believe that when I moved away, I moved to a different town 10 miles away, still very close, but when we would go out geocaching, I couldn't believe the amount of parks and the amount of trail systems in my hometown. And I thought I knew my hometown like the back of my hand. And the reason why I say that is it ties into the history of our own hometowns, because the one thing that I notice about the paranormal teams, they all want that giant blue check mark that they've done the famous places. And yet, Merle can attest to where I live here, some of the best stories that we've ever investigated or ever looked into are in these smaller rural communities where people don't talk about the weird stuff because they don't want their community to get that reputation. And that's the gold, to me, where the gold nuggets are. How important is that to do that investigation?
It's very important, very important. So, for instance, with Cemetery Park, there's people that were born and raised here in Ventura, California that still either, one, don't know about it, or two, think it's an urban legend. So it's really, interesting to see that once you give them that information, you actually give them factual documentation and show them what really happened, just to see the look on their face, and it's this huge discovery, right? It's this huge realization that something happened in their own town that they did do nothing about. So it's a huge part of the investigation process and a huge part of research.
Merle, what do you think?
I was just going to say, Dave, look up Woodlands Memorial Garden in New Westminster. Similar to what Brandon's talking about, except the city made it into a memorial. Once they found most of the tombstones of a bunch of people where they made condos and high rises, but they took all the tombstones and all that and made it into like a nice memorial garden. But yeah, I'm big on the history too. That's one thing my team thrives on, is we go to places people don't go, haven't been, where stories need to be told. And I think that's very important with a community, because you could hit like Waverly Hills every day, like every other team, but nobody goes to the sanitarium that's down the road to the right, down a dirt road. There's none of that. And I think there's more of that needing to do. Heck, I found a pet cemetery the other month. So there's things everywhere, Dave.
Well, and that's the key. People could use ghost hunting as such a great way to really define different areas And you know, I always, Brendan, please correct me if I'm wrong on this, because the one thing that we always hear of the paranormal is, I want a television pilot. I want to be on a television show. I want to, you know, be somebody in the paranormal. This is my last shot to be famous, or whatever it may be, whatever the excuse. And yet, you could sit there and build your own with the technology that's very, you know, cheap, and you're able to do it. You could put it on a YouTube channel, much like you guys are with your series, and maybe it gets picked up by Amazon or Netflix or Tubi or somebody along those lines. It isn't as hard as it is anymore, but you have to be able to tell the story. And I think that's the biggest flaw that many people have in this field is they're great at the investigation, but they are absolutely horrible at telling the story.
No, you're right. You're exactly right. And there's almost a sense of investigative journalism to it, right? There's that larger picture of what it all really means. It's not just, you know, the thrill of going to a haunted location and experiencing something that you can't explain. There's a larger story there. Why is there a phenomena taking place? What's connected to that phenomena? Where's the humanity within that phenomena? Because if we're dealing with what we believe we're dealing with is deceased people that retain consciousness after death, that's human. That is a story. That's someone's life, someone that lived, someone that died, someone that had a family. And that's something that has to be told. And I think that is a huge part of the investigative process, a huge part of the research, but also just to, you know, be ethical in that sense. And that's one thing we do talk about in Formula of a Haunting, especially in our second episode, where we talk about humanizing the situation and thinking about the time period, thinking about the way people conducted themselves in specific time periods or different cultures. So I think there's a larger story that really gets left out a lot of the time.
Do you alter the way you investigate depending on what time period you're aiming to talk to?
Absolutely. The methodology and the protocol is always there, but the ethics change because you have to look at the specific time period, the people that are supposed to be associated with a specific location, and really look at their lives as they lived. And that's why historical research is so important, to know, you know, how they lived, how they died, what they went through, why they were in that building, you know, how they conducted themselves. So that's a huge part of it.
Absolutely. Like our team, we our little slogan we have is history has a voice and we want to listen.
I love that.
And then that's kind of our homage to history, because we want to go to some town where people forgot about it, investigate it, and see if there's any messages or voices that still want to be heard or told. That's what's important to me. I don't care about the weekend warrioring or like going to find the thrill or demons and crap like that. I want to go for the proper history. I want to go for the real investigation research side.
Yeah.
And I think that kind of weeds out a lot of different styles of the way people investigate through different teams.
Exactly. Absolutely. And that's another interesting point you make. You know, when I first started in the field and I was investigating these unknown historical locations, historical societies, museums, things of that nature, the way I got into these locations was because it was an avenue for these museums, for these historical societies to teach people about history through the paranormal avenue, through this genre. And it was a perfect way for them to tell the stories of these people in these locations. And people want to come have a scary experience or come have some kind of, you know, adrenaline pumping experience. But at the end of the day, they walk away knowing a bit about their local history and knowing about the people that came before them. And that's a perfect way to, you know, really preserve it for future generations.
And that's a win for me if people walk away like that.
And for me, it means the cancellation of a tour. Oh, my goodness. Brandon, we ran a ghost tour at our local museum here for 3 years, raised over $14,000 for the museum as their biggest donator by doing this, won them their first ever tourism award, and they voted to pretty much cancel the tour.
Wow, that's too bad. Yeah. That's too bad.
Yeah. And we got some amazing stuff out of there. Amazing stuff. Merle and I got chased out of there numerous times. It's kind of a lot of weird stuff happened there. But But, you also have, when you go into these towns, you also have to have the respect of the community, too, because you're an outsider. Maybe not for your documentary that you're doing in your home right now, but for the most part, you're an outsider trying to get some of the most personal stories from those hidden gem communities. How do you build that olive branch to say, look, I'm not here to embarrass your community. I'm not here to tell falsehoods or false stories. I'm not here to make fun of you guys, but there's some really cool areas around here, a museum, an old barn, maybe a graveyard, maybe a legend that I really want to investigate. How do you build that bridge?
It's interesting because when it comes to, the ghosts and hauntings aspect, it can be tough because there's a lot of people that could be, highly religious or, just non-believers that want no part of it, right? So it's always about that historical avenue and really saying, hey, look, I want to tell the story. I want to know what the true facts are. And not just by listening to one person in the community, you really got to cross-reference and try and correlate those stories and try and find factual documentation, be that through Sanborn fire insurance maps, death records, anything like that. But you have to talk to as many people in the community as possible to let them have their voice in the situation, and then really, cross-reference that and really find out what the truth is. But once you give everyone their voice in that situation, I think it really calms things down a bit, right? And it makes people feel a bit more comfortable that they can give their piece of their side of what the story may be.
Are people... Oh, sorry, Mike, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I agree. I won't go to a historical location unless I've done my research to where I can carry a conversation with a local about their history to gain their trust and be an open book with them, because I find doing that opens more doors for you where people will want you to come and explore because you're relating to them. And I think that goes miles, I've found.
Many words there. We've got 2 minutes here before we got to go to break. At the top of the hour, we got Merle from the Paranormal Road Trippers at Ghosts of the Great White North with our special guest, Brandon Alvis from the hit television series Ghost Hunters. And Merle actually brings up a good point. It's about building the community and that relationship. And, I think with the younger generations, like I'm 48, or going to be 48 this year. Merle is in his 30s. Brandon, I think you're in your 30s as well. If you're in your 40s, God bless you for looking so young, because look at me. It's not pretty. But what I'm saying is, in regards to that, the younger generations of towns are very much more open to that. And they're very much open to seeing what's out there. Do you find that you go to more of the younger pillars of the community to get that message across?
It changes, community to community, state by state, county by county, city by city. It changes. But a lot of times we have a lot of luck with historical societies, which is mainly ran by, older people, and they're always about preserving the history in some capacity. And once you show them that you're not there to dramatize or blow things up and tell a story that's not true just to try and tell a nice ghost story, I think that's when they start to open up and they really start to talk about the factual history. So I think it changes. Each location, each community is different.
That is awesome. That is awesome, guys. I'm going to get you to hold on here because we are going to go to break at the top of the hour on Spaced Out Radio. Once a month, we bring in Merle from the Paranormal Road Trippers. He's a man of many words and great stature. Paranormal Road Trippers Merle. For Ghosts of the Great White North, it's one of the fun features that we focus in strictly on the paranormal and supernatural on this show. And our special guest tonight from the hit television series Ghost Hunters, we have Brandon Alvis. And yes, he is wearing his famous black hat. It is awesome to see. It really is. And when we come back, let's get into some ghost stories. Let's hear what freaks Brandon out. Where's he been that he's got scared? Maybe soiled his underwear or someplace like that. We're going to find out on Spaced Out Radio in Hour 2 next. You know, every show, Merle, you always try and interrupt my extra out to the commercials, and I laugh.
Absolutely, I do.
I know you do. It's totally on purpose. Gentlemen, you talk away. I'm gonna run the dogs outside because I have my dog. I have Merle's dog that lives with me, and they're old and they need to go for a piss. So I'll be right back.
Yeah, history is important to my team. We that's what we focus on. I just find it important because I find a lot of history is being forgotten with the progressive society. They'd rather knock it down,
Right.
than keep. Like, we do a lot of fundraisers and charity events for nonprofit historical societies up here.
That's fantastic.
Good, yeah.
That's a lost art these days, man. It's too bad. I think a lot of that has to do with the television landscape as well. People seeing and mimicking what they're seeing on television, and they don't care about the facts. A lot of misinformation, unfortunately. They'll go to a location based off of a complete legend or just an outright lie that was made up by a TV show. It's pretty sad. So it's good to hear that you guys are out there, helping the community and really helping preserve history for future generations. That's amazing.
Yeah, and I like to go to locations and I like to do the research, but I like to find people who actually died in the area instead of the hearsay, and try and actually sit down and do the hour-long EVP sessions with the Zoom and call them out. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't.
Right.
But yeah,
absolutely, that's the way to do it. That's the way to do it. And that's I've always been a huge history buff, even before I got into the paranormal stuff. So I think that kind of really helped, with my research, is the fact that I was always about preserving history and documentation. So I collect a lot of antiques. I think you probably see some up here, stuff like this. I was
wondering. When you walked over there, I was like, "What is that?"
Yeah, I surround myself with history because it's a way to live life, man. It's looking back and understanding the way of life from different perspectives, I think makes life more enjoyable. It 100%. Makes, I love it. That's what I love about the paranormal, right? It's like, in my opinion, it's the only way to really try and relive history.
Yep.
Without going to like a reenactment or something like that. But hey, that's a different story.
Kind of dig up the dirt from the past so you can get anything. Yeah.
Absolutely. And that's one thing that's so great about, doing ghost hunters, is having that really heavy vetting system from the network and from Pilgrim. Is they're going to put us in situations that are very real and very vetted, and they're not going to make things up, which I always respected about ghost hunters and respect about working with A&E and Pilgrim, because a lot of those shows you see out there, they don't care about that at all.
No, you can see with like ghost hunters, especially like your style, with just basically the no bullshit. So can't say that on YouTube. The no BS approach with the science. I appreciate that. That's, people find that dry and boring because it doesn't pay off, and it's not a cell phone app that says locks in your GPS and says like random things in the area you're in, like that.
Right. Exactly. That's technology. That's another thing I'm always talking about, and I get a lot of flack for it. Is I call out devices made for the paranormal. I think it almost makes me feel like Harry Houdini in the 30s. You know what I mean? Calling out the fraudulent mediums and spiritualist movement and things like that. But when I see stuff like that, I don't know, it just boils my blood. I don't know why. It gets me heated up, and I just don't like to see people out there just being fraudulent and trying to push a narrative that's only for their own personal gain, which is highly disrespectful not only to the history but to the possible entities that are in these places.
100%, I agree. And it's like people will ask, what's your favorite device to bring into an investigation? I'll say an audio recorder. And they're like, that's it?
Yep.
Well, yeah.
So you get credible data. Yeah, credible data, especially if it's high bit rates. You can have it broken down through spectrum analysis and all that.
Absolutely. So. Yep.
It's just amazing.
It is amazing.
Merle, it's cold here.
Is it? It's not here. I wore a t-shirt today.
Must be nice.
Sunny. Ray-Bans on.
Let's see. It's -9 Celsius.
Ooh.
Minus 6 or 16 Fahrenheit right now.
That's not fun.
No.
Hey, Dave, how much time do we have left?
We got 90 seconds.
Be right back.
Yeah. It's going to go, so.
Oh, when we last season when we did Ghost Hunters, they put us in the most frigid, cold locations they could find for an entire season. So that was fun.
Oh, I think it's great. You know, one thing that I would love to see on television, you know, is remember the old MTV show where they piled a bunch of people into a motorhome and they just drove to different locations?
Yep. Road Rules, yeah.
Yeah, Road Rules. I would love to see a paranormal Road Rules.
You know, Destination Fear kind of does that a bit. That's very similar to what they do. It's like four friends that get in a motorhome and they go and like do these challenges and stuff like that. So it's almost in that vein. It's very close.
What's the dude's name on there? What's the dude's name there?
Dakota Layden.
I kicked him off our booking from this show.
Yeah, he's a Zach protege, so he's kind of.
He was all pumped up about coming on the show, and literally 2 days before the show, his so-called publicist gets a hold of me and says, "Yeah, he can only do 20 to 30 minutes." And I said he agreed to 2.5 hours. And she's like, "Well, he's got a flight to catch." I said, "No, he doesn't. It's a television show that he's got an ego now." I said, "That's exactly it." I said, "You know what? Not interested. I'll find someone else." Hold on.
That's too bad.
Hold on one sec here, guys. Hour number 2 of Spaced Out Radio is now underway. My name is Dave Scott. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us. We really do appreciate earning your listening ears. Want to welcome back everyone listening in to our terrestrial affiliates around North America digitally on Revolution Radio, KPNL, and TalkStream Live. Remember, all of our archives are free for you. No, we don't charge for them like other shows do. You get them at youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Just do me the favor. The only thing I ask, hit that subscribe button. The Desert Clam has set the password for tonight in the SOR Space Travelers Club. I know I'm going to butcher this one. Ovaloid. Is it Uvaloid or Ovaloid? I don't know, but the Clam sets a password each and every night right here on Spaced Out Radio. Our website is spacedoutradio.com, where we have a plethora of features for you, including rocking out to Bumblefoot and reading up on Captain Shirk's SOR Newswire. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio and on Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show. We continue on with Ghosts of the Great White North. We got Merle here from the Paranormal Road Trippers out of Vancouver, British Columbia, and our special guest from the hit television show Ghost Hunters, one of the good guys in this field, Brandon Alvis. Gentlemen, welcome back.
Thanks, Dave.
Thanks, Merle. Brandon, I want to hit you up here. Out of all the places that you've investigated, from the most popular to those unknown situations, which we were just talking about in the last half hour, where have you been the most scared?
Ooh, that's tough. You know, I haven't been in too many situations where I'm scared, really. I probably would have to say, you know, at Fort Stanton, New Mexico was a moment that it was so mind-boggling and so mind-blowing to me. It did kind of make me uncomfortable. And that's going back to that piece of technology we were talking about earlier, the EMCCD camera, the photon camera, and being in this federal tuberculosis hospital and dealing with these eyewitnesses. These were state park employees. These are people that are regulated, drug tested, and very credible eyewitnesses that claim to see apparitions in this tuberculosis hospital. And once we utilized that piece of equipment and we started to see this photon event in real time that seemed to be humanoid in shape, that really freaked me out a bit because I had no natural explanation. It was a moment where I'm looking down at a monitor, looking up with my own eyes. There's physically nothing there, and I'm looking down and there's something peeking out of a doorway. That was a moment that really, made your skin crawl a bit. Not only because it was something that, I think to most people would be pretty frightening, but my logical mind was completely out the window at that point, and that was kind of uncomfortable for sure.
Do you recall a paranormal story, and we all have them, that affect us, whether it's the positive, whether the negative, whether it's the emotional? Tell us a story and paint a picture for us about one that really hit you.
I'd probably have to say in the winter of 2008 in the RMS Queen Mary. I was down in the first class pool changing stalls with myself, another APRA investigator, and a security guard. This was years ago when you could actually have access to these amazing parts of this fantastic piece of World War II history. I was down there teaching an investigator how to conduct a proper EMF sweep when we captured one of the most significant pieces of apparition footage to date. And it's a piece of footage that has been looked at by many audio and video engineers and people from third parties and technical industries that have no explanation. But it wasn't until I came back in 2009 and I tried to reach out to this little girl they say that haunts the first class pool by the name of Jackie, which is funny because there's really no factual documentation of a little girl drowning in the first class pool in any way, shape, or form, or a little girl named Jackie. But in the early 90s, in the famous show Sightings, and Peter James documented this voice. Yeah, I went there to try and recreate it. And as I stood there around 2:30 a.m. in the first class pool changing stalls, which a year prior I captured this amazing piece of footage that, I won't say what it looks like. People can go check it out for themselves. I don't want to taint anyone's view on it, but I heard a little girl's voice calling out to us. I mean, clear as day. I mean, it was so clear that I had to come back with an audio engineer to try and recreate it because I thought the Queen Mary or someone associated with the ship was trying to fool us, trying to pull the wool over our eyes. But I actually documented that voice on 4 different audio recorders and have had that looked at by many audio engineers. It's been broken down through spectrum analysis. We have no explanation, but to see a location where I captured this amazing visual anomaly, this amazing audible anomaly, and to have that a year apart in the same area it's pretty mind-blowing, for sure.
Is it worse when it involves children?
It can be tough, absolutely. It can be very tough because, a life cut short at a young age like that it's heartbreaking. And sometimes, in those situations, they don't really know what has happened to them, or they're looking for answers. And you can almost, sense that they're frightened at times as well. So it can be very tough, definitely. Very emotional.
First ghost I ever saw was a little girl, about 1.5 feet away from me when I woke up. I thought it was my daughter, till I realized my daughter was laying on my arm.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. And I remember her wearing this white nightie. She had long ringlet hair, the pudgy kid's cheeks that 2-3-year-olds have. And I remember, this is how long ago it was, I remember seeing right through her nightie and seeing 4:02 a.m. on my VCR.
Whoa, yeah, that'll freak you out, huh?
Oh, I did what any man would do. I screamed and then threw the covers over my head and started the heavy panting like, oh my God, did I actually see what I saw? And the weird part about it was 5 days later, I was out at a friend's house, and my ex-wife went to bed early, and it was probably just after midnight or so. She got woken up by our keys on our piano playing. And so we had a 2-tiered stairway. She walks down the stairs to the first tier and kind of looks over to the piano because we had 2 cats, and they would run along the piano keys at times, and they were playing at night. And she looks at the piano, and there's the little girl, exact same description, banging away on the piano keys. And I was like, oh, that place was so haunted. So haunted. It was unbelievable. Unbelievable. But, Merle, have you ever dealt with children's spirits?
I did once at an old historic house in Vernon. The tell was that a child died of, well, I'm not sure what it died of, up in its bedroom back in the 1800s. And it said if you leave a ball on the floor at the doorway of his bedroom, he'll push it. And lo and behold, the ball moved, and our REM pod, because we put a REM pod in the room to see what would happen, went nuts. And then when we were leaving, I stayed behind. I was by myself for a second, and the other 3 investigators went outside, and then the door slammed on me, and I swear to this day I saw that little boy at the top of the stairs. So that'd probably be the only time I've ever encountered like that. Other than that, no.
Yeah. few questions coming from our audience in our YouTube channel chat. Persevere is asking, Brandon, do you think ghosts could sometimes be alien entities?
I think it's very possible when you think about like interdimensional aspects of phenomena and research. That's definitely a widely speculated theory for sure. Interdimensional stuff is something that a lot of researchers have looked into. So I think there's definitely a possibility. Absolutely.
I want to expand on that because this is one of the disagreements Merle and I have had over time. But for people, whether it's like Ross Allison, David Weatherly, John Tenney, Timothy Renner, Joshua Cutchin, and many others, they seem to be investigating this invisible thread that connects the paranormal to the cryptid world, to the UFO alien world. And yet, 99 or 98% of the UFO world, cryptid world, and paranormal world does not want to tie the phenomena together. Are we making a mistake by that, by not tying it together or looking into the possibility that somehow they're all co-entwined with each other?
Mm-hmm. We have to look at all possibilities. The moment that we're not doing that, I don't think we're doing the research properly. We really have to look at all possibilities. That's one thing that we talk about a lot, Mustafa and I, especially with the interdimensional stuff. We go into the whole aspect of photons and the possibility that photons are the mechanics behind manifestations, and then all of a sudden we start to see that there's barometric pressure changes around photon events. And you go look at talks from people like Sir Roger Penrose that talks about black hole theory and black holes having photons and pressure changes, things of that nature. So if that's taking place in space and it's also taking place in locations that we perceive or believe to be haunted, are they connected in some way? Is there a correlation there? And that's something I think we have to look into. So I think that we always have to look into every possibility in every aspect.
Merle, what's your thoughts, Mr. I don't agree with that?
I don't agree with that. No. I don't know how I could tie a ghost into an alien. That's just my personal opinion. Do I think that there's a broader spectrum that needs to be investigated to see if you can tie each in? Yes.
Why?
It's not a why asking question. No. That's just my opinion that I've never really... Well, you know how I feel about the whole alien thing.
They scare you.
They scare me.
They scare you. Merle, you got to have a little aliens in your life, man. You got to have a little aliens in your life.
Until I see one beside me, like a spirit, then I don't know.
All right, let's move on to Jules' question here. And she is asking, do either of you think ghosts are multiversal bleed-through?
Could be. It could very well be. Again, there's no experts in this field, as we all know. We're not exactly sure what we're dealing with. So every theory and every way to try and find some kind of, theory that can be proven is what we're trying to do, at least what I'm trying to do. So I think that anything's possible. And who knows? Who knows what's going on, with the interdimensional stuff, multi-dimensions, bleeding through. It's something to look into. I think it's something that we have to be open-minded about.
See, that's one of the things that I'll tell you a story that threw me for a loop. A couple of years ago, we had a Paracon up here, and it was real stormy, snowy weather, cold, wet, and it was the final night of the Paracon, and we had a ghost tour scheduled for the VIPs going on the original Gold Rush Trail, from the 1850s. And the cool part about that was the first time I'd ever been pinched. And that was kind of cool when that happened because I hadn't experienced that before. But I remember I was with our good friend, the Ukrainian watermelon, little Ronnie Moniak. He's from Saskatchewan. So, Ron, I know you're listening. Make sure you wave so everybody in North America can see you. So flat there. But nonetheless, there were 9 of us, and we had 9 K2 meters along with the other gear. And we run into these spirits. And through questioning over about 10, 15 minutes, we found out that they were Chinese. They were heading to Barkerville, which had a large Chinese contingent and community up in northern rural British Columbia. And we were able to find out, just after 15 minutes, we were like, okay, well, thank you so much. We're going to continue on with our tour, because we got a lot of first-time experiencers on there, and, you hate to rush through it, but that's what a tour does. It rushes through. So anyways, we're all standing there talking about how awesome this experience were, but the 9K2 meters are still going off. And all of a sudden I started thinking, hold on a second here. We're standing in the middle of the trail. They can't continue because we're in their way. And so I kind of left the group. I walk up a little bit on the trail with my K2 out, and then I figured it out. Well, they're going to have a horse or two, and they're going to have a trailer or a buggy being towed by those horses. So I told everybody to move off of the path. And as we moved off the path, you could see from the far end where I was, my K2 meter went off. And then the other one slowly started turning off and off and off and off. And it really made me wonder, for the first time at that point, were we ghosts in their dimension, just like we think we're a ghost, or they're ghosts to us? And there's not a lot of people in this field who talk about that or even want to consider that as a major option of the multi-dimensional theory. Your thoughts?
Right. It actually reminds me of the movie The Others with Nicole Kidman. That's very similar to what happened in that film. But yeah, I think it's a possibility. You know what I mean? Multiple timelines intersecting in one location. I think that's a strong possibility. And as technology advances, which is at a rapid rate these days, who knows what we're going to find out in the next 20, 25 years.
All right, let's continue on with the question. Spookles the Cat on Twitter at #SpacedOutRadio wants to know if any of you have ever run into any ghost cats. I know I have. I'll let you guys go first.
No ghost cat for me. I ran into a ghost dog before in Calico Ghost Town here in California. That was actually one of my first experiences ever. But no ghost cat for me.
Merle?
No ghost cat, no ghost dog, but yes to a ghost pig. I was in Barkerville. I was just walking up Barkerville. Brandon is a town. Take Tombstone or Deadwood, put it up in the rock in Canada. And I was walking down the main drag by myself with my old audio recorder. I was just doing a light EVP session up and down, getting some readings as well. And I walked by. No one's there. I'm the only one there. Just keep that in mind. And I walk by where the old butcher shop was. And I hear nothing, obviously, in my naked ear. But then when I go back after I'm done doing this, you can hear me yapping about the butcher shop on my audio recorder, and all of a sudden you hear oinking and squealing of pigs. And I have that audio somewhere on my computer, but it's so loud and audible. You're like, what the hell is going on? So that would be, Class A animal sound.
Merle, did you never hear the cat in the main house of the 108 Heritage Site?
I didn't, but I was with you and others when people experienced it. I did not experience it.
Oh, we got a ghost cat in our museum, scratches people. We've had people have the cat rub up on their legs. Our good buddy, Little Marky Spender, he will sit on the couch, and he will literally feel the cat jump up on the couch, lay down beside him for a pet. It's crazy. And, not that I'm trying to one-up here, but recently, as I've been telling my audience, Brandon, I inherited Mike. I adopted Mike's dog, Shadow, a purebred German Shepherd. Gorgeous dog. Gorgeous. I now have a replica ghost of Shadow walking around my yard. I've seen it 3 times. And the other day, I walked inside, and you know how dogs scratch at the door to come on in? Literally, not even 10 seconds after I walked in the door, there was that scratch and push on a door the way a dog does. So the dog tried to get into the house the other day. So 3 times I've seen this shadow, lack of a better term, shadow, because the dog's name is Shadow, and it's a shadow of Shadow, and now it's trying to get into my house. It's on. It's totally on. I love it. Love it. I don't know what it means, but I don't want the dog inside. Let's go to Human Carl here for a second. Human Carl, not to be misconstrued with Alien Carl. By the way, Human Carl is one of the great veterans who listens to this show, and we love to clap for all of our veterans who tune on in. We love you. Human Carl is asking, why do people become afraid of ghosts? How many people have been killed or even harmed by ghosts? Brandon.
That's a great question. I mean, none that we know of to this day. I've yet to hear about an unfortunate death or, an untimely death because of an entity or a ghost. But, I think a lot of people are afraid because it's the one thing that kind of, relates all of us, and that's death. And it's kind of looking your own, looking at yourself in the mirror and saying, one day I'm going to die. So I think that really is what freaks a lot of people out, is just thinking about the concept of death and, mortality in that sense. So that's one thing that, unites us all, right, is death. And, we're out here looking for the possibility of a life after death.
Merle?
I think it's lack of control. You go into your house and you're expecting it to be your house, you alone only, and you see Johnny walking up your hallway kind of see-through. That would be frightening for 9.5 out of 10 people who are not ready, willing, or up for finding that out, obviously, unless you're on a paranormal investigation. But to your average Joe, that's going to put them through the roof. But for me, it would be a control thing. Things I can't control, but I can see, I don't like, especially that sort of thing, when you're not ready.
All right, Greco in Toronto is asking, and I'm going to change this up a little bit because I think I know where he's going with this. Telepathy. A lot of times we get messages that aren't on voicemail, on any voice recorders, but we know that something is talking to us. Have you guys ever experienced telepathic communication while on an investigation?
I have not personally, experienced it, but I've been with investigators that have, and I do believe that there is a phenomena, with telepathy. Not only telepathy, telekinetic activity as well, where the mind's a powerful thing, right? And we're made up of energy, and the mind's full of energy. So, I have not had that personal experience myself, but I have definitely worked with people that have.
How do you take that for reality when that happens, Brandon? Because you're working with people who you trust their word, but you want to kind of break things down on a scientific level as well. How do you blend the two?
It's tough if there's no empirical evidence or factual data. It's just an experience. So that's not going to translate well in a case log or translate well to research because there's no documentation. Unfortunately, that would just be left at an experience.
Merle, what's your thoughts?
I fully agree with Brandon there. I've never experienced telepathy on an investigation. I haven't seen it happen either. I've seen people share feelings, but not like thoughts. So, yeah, nothing.
All right, gentlemen, we got 1 minute to go before we got to go to break here at the bottom of the hour. We got Merle with Ghosts of the Great White North and our special guest, Brandon Alvis. We'll sneak in one more question here from Greco because he's a good Canadian kid. Can multiple poltergeists haunt the same location or person?
Well, typically, poltergeist activity is associated with a living agent, with a person. And, there can be multiple in a house. It depends on the person. Actually, there was a case we worked years ago where a mother and a daughter were both projecting that poltergeist activity in the same location. And we didn't really actually realize that until we separated them and, activity would cease to exist. So, yeah, absolutely. But typically, poltergeist activity is associated with a living agent, typically women, younger females, and older females.
All right. On that note, Merle, I'm going to get you to go silent here, and we're going to come back from the break, continue with paranormal experiences, your questions as well if you're in one of our chat rooms or on Twitter at #SpacedOutRadio. Ghosts of the Great White North happens mid-month here on Spaced Out Radio with our resident paranormal guru, Merle from Paranormal Road Trippers, and our special guest, Brandon Alvis from the hit television series Ghost Hunters. We continue right after this, Spaced Out Radio. God, this is flying by. Totally
It really
flying
is,
by.
yeah. It's already almost 10:30, huh? Jeez.
Yeah. This is good stuff here. Good stuff. Yeah. What do you think, Merle?
Thinking I'll be right back, and then I'll tell you what I'm thinking.
Too many tacos at lunch today. That's what that is. I have a theory, Brandon.
Yeah.
I think Sasquatch are guardians of sacred places.
Well, that's interesting. Yeah.
Merle and I and our good friend Mark, you've heard me mention his name a couple of times, in 2018 got scared out of a paranormal investigation by a couple of Sasquatch. We literally heard the one talking.
Jeez.
It was like right out of Ronald Moorhead's Sierra Sounds.
Really?
Yeah, like that.
Oh.
That
Right.
Yeah, like that
Almost
was like right
cave,
in front.
caveman-like thing.
Oh yeah, but the location, about 25 miles from my town, in 1965, there was a plane exploded. An old DC-6 airliner exploded. There was a bomb on board, and today it's still Canada's largest unsolved mass murder. And the only reason why it isn't solved is they believe the killer was on the plane.
Wow. Jeez.
And long story short, Mike wanted to do an investigation out there, and we did. And lo and behold, we're at the site for a couple of hours, and literally it is in the middle of the forest. Like, there is no cell phone service. It is getting a little bit better there now, but you're on half a bar. You know what I'm saying? You can't pick up radio signals there, so it's great for EVP type work or ghost box type work. But there we were, and Mike wanted to take this deer trail in behind the crash site just to see if there was anything more, and that's where we heard the voice talking, or that mumbling, grumbling sound. Like, when my community is so small, dude, when you go out in the forest, you may have a vehicle pass you, and then within 10 minutes, you have no idea where it went.
Wow.
Okay, I mean, that's how rural this is. And, you don't hear cars, you don't hear horns or anything like that. And our buddy Mark, who went with us, in that area, you have to go in armed. You have to. There's grizzly bears, when we were there with Mike one of the last times, there was cougar markings and droppings all over the place. I mean, it's a scary. There's a lot of animals there that could kill you.
Right.
Just to be blunt, and you got to go in armed. And anyways, long story short, while we're there, Merle gets freaked out because this one creature's moved within like 20 feet of him. And as this is going on, the second creature, and Mark is about 90 feet away from us. Okay, the second creature's coming through the forest at Mark. And Mark's now got his rifle raised to whatever it was. And the one thing about Mark, if you know Mark, he's pretty laid back. He's never too high, never too low. And he will say, point blank, I don't know what the hell it was, but I know it was on 2 feet.
Oh, man, that's scary.
Because when you spend that much time in the forest, you know the difference between the animals. He was a wolf tracker. He's been a hunting guide for 30 years. This guy, he's born with nature in him.
Right.
And, it was weird. And we're trying, we've made a little bit of communication since then. I set up a gifting site there, and I'll tell you about that next break, but it's kind of cool. It's kind of cool. Hey, Merle, thanks for joining us.
Oh, you're welcome, Dave. I just had to make sure my kid was sleeping and not milking the iPad time since I'm doing an iPod.
I know.
Or podcast.
Yeah, we're not a podcast. We're a live radio show, Merle.
Same thing.
No. different. Hey, I want to remind everybody that Geraldine Orozco from the Spiritual You will be taking part in the Higher Self Expo this Saturday, the 23rd, 7 a.m. Pacific, 10 a.m. Eastern. Go to higherselfexpo.com. It is all free, and I told her I would pass the message on to our audience, so make sure you check it on out. We're going to get going here in like 5 seconds, everyone. Stay tuned as we continue with Merle and Ghost of the Great White North with Brandon. Hold on. Past the halfway point of Spaced Out Radio tonight. My name is Dave Scott. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us. We really do appreciate it. I want to remind you that if you've missed portions of this show or others, check out our free archives by going to youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do old Davey the favor, hit that subscribe button. Our website is spacedoutradio.com, where we have a plethora of features for you, including rocking out to Bumblefoot and reading up on Captain Shirk's SOR Newswire. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio and on Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show. We continue on with Ghosts of the Great White North from the Paranormal Road Trippers. We got the man of many words, Merle, is with us, and from the hit television series Ghost Hunters, Brandon Alvis, black hat and all. One day he will autograph that hat, and it will hang in the studio here when he retires. So I got about 50 years to go. Guys, welcome back.
Thanks again. This has been a pleasure.
Oh, no problem. We're glad you're here. Glad you're here. You know, we always want to know that scary story, Brandon, in regards to, you know, we always like to hear, and people love to hear, when the pros like you get freaked out. You get freaked out. You get a little uncomfortable. Have you ever been attacked by a spirit? If so, what happened?
You know, I have not. You know, I've not encountered an attack in any way, shape, or form. But I was in a situation with Mustafa at the Glen House in Cape Girardeau, Missouri, where he was physically scratched. And that was actually the first time I've ever seen anything like that with my own eyes. You know, I've done well over 200 cases, been to well over 200 locations, and I've never had an encounter like that. But to see Mustafa, you know, say, hey, something grabbed me on my shoulder, and we lift up his shirt, and there it is, huge scratch marks. And actually later when he got back to his hotel room, his back had a bunch of welts on it too. And he said he felt like something physically grabbed him and started like almost pushing him out the room. And he had physical marks on him. So I've never personally had that happen to me, but I was in a room that was very tense, actually. It had you could feel that change in the environment, right? It's one thing that we're always trying to do is document the natural environment and seeing if there's any changes within that natural environment. And there was a lot of pressure changes, EMF fluctuations, and then boom, this happens to Mustafa. And to actually document that in a span, I think, of about 10 minutes was pretty frightening, that's for sure.
I had a similar experience. It's funny you mentioned the pressure changes and the whole atmospheric changes. I was on an investigation in Barkerville again with a previous team, and the investigator, he was kind of, I wouldn't say egging on the spirits, but maybe how we talk in this would have been 2015, would have been a little different than 1879. So he may have been a little more aggressive than he should have been. He's like, guys, it's getting really cold in here. And all of a sudden it got cold. He said he felt staticky. Felt the whole cobweb thing, the cobweb theory. He felt like he walked through cobweb. It's all on film too. And all of a sudden he freaked out and he's like, my back is burning. And then he ripped out of this building. And this is in March in the north, so it probably would have been -10 outside because we're doing it at nighttime. And he rips his shirt and jacket off, and he had 3 giant scratches on his back. And for me, that was the first time I was like, oh, Jesus, I'm really doing this. And then if you fast forward, so before we fast forward, I've always wanted to figure out why stuff like that happens. Why can that happen? And 2 years ago, I don't share this story often because I just don't. But we were investigating another historic building called the Bailey House, and I got choked. I actually felt a hand on my throat, and it squeezed, and I'm like, okay, time out. And then I went outside, and basically, I finished the investigation, but I had to take a lot of time to collect myself and really reevaluate what I'm doing here. So it gets pretty real right quick.
Why do you think ghosts would attack, Brandon? What would be their purpose?
Again, it's all about the person that's inhabiting or haunting a location. As in life, as in death, is something I always believe in, right? It's a nice saying that's I think that really holds some weight. If you go to a location where someone was an angry person that was physically abusive, verbally abusive, something like that, and you start to inhabit that person's space and you are getting out of line or doing something they find to be disrespectful, they will try and be the person they were in life to you. But sometimes I think that there can be a misconception of people, having an experience of, say, a scratch, a very small scratch or being touched, that is actually probably just a way of communication that's not meant to be harmful or frightening. But I mean, having your throat grabbed is a different story, and having these huge scratches is a different story. But I think there's times where there can be a misconception of what's really happening. It's not always malicious.
It's surreal because you believe it or you want to believe it until it happens to you. And here we are. I believe it. But like you, I have a similar, I'll say, an ass in the afterlife was probably an ass in, or an ass when they were alive, probably an ass in the afterlife. And because a lot of time on investigations, people will be like, there's a negative entity here. He doesn't like you. He's probably a demon, but it's probably just a person that's kind of cranky.
Absolutely.
Until you document further. Yeah,
that's that big misconception again. For some reason, I think that, the horror genre has really overtaken the paranormal genre. The Conjuring films probably have a lot to do with that, unfortunately. But people want things to be negative so bad. I don't know why. I think it's probably because they want that experience, that adrenaline rush or that excitement.
Better drama.
Yeah, but it's a very rare occurrence to come across something malicious or negative or demonic. It's very, very, very rare.
Nobody wants to talk about the 5-hour EVP session by yourself in a building and not getting anything.
Exactly.
Well, but you know what? There is a dark side to that too. Like I know with my ghost tour that I had, I lost one of my top volunteers because she started hanging out with this local psychic lady that everything's a demon. Everything is from the dark side. And it got to the point where my investigator started bringing that into the tour, and within 3 tours, I had 14 complaints about her. 14. No. And I have to let you go. I don't want to. I have no choice. But, and it's funny to watch her on social media now because everything is dark. Everything is from the darkness. And to me, that is such a misconception of what is going on and being that matter of fact. And you really want to type on there on social media especially, no, you don't know what you're talking about. I know you personally, but you can't. You know what I'm saying? You can't, right. Because then the attacks come and then the ad hominem accusations come on in. So how do we get away from this entire everything's a demon, everything is dark, everything's out to hurt us, much like a horror movie?
Stop watching Ghost Adventures. Partially. But also it goes back to the history, right? Knowing what factually happened there. What is the history of a location? What type of people lived and died in these buildings? That's going to give you, the truest form of what could possibly be going on from a historical standpoint and from a phenomena standpoint, just understanding what these people were like.
That is very difficult, though, for a lot of people because they want to go on their own adrenaline. And adrenaline is one of the big issues that we have in this field as we move forward. I got a couple questions coming from our audience here. We'll start with G Girl, who is asking, gentlemen, do you think spirits can recognize us from a past life?
It's possible. Past life and past life regression has always been something that's interesting to me. It's not something I've experienced personally. I've worked with clients before that believe that they, were reincarnated or a person from another time. And Actually, there was a case I worked one time many years ago where a woman believed that she was in contact in this home that she moved into, was a historic home, and that she lived there and died there, and that some of the entities that she thought were, haunting the place were family members, so kind of a familial connection. I'm always open to it. Who knows exactly what's going on, but I have definitely worked a few cases over the years where people believe that they are from a past life and are connecting to ghosts from that past life.
Merle?
Me, I think it's a possibility. I've had a previous team member who is so fixated on a site that we used to investigate yearly that he was convinced that he lived there in a previous life and knew the ghosts there. Like, convinced. Like, normal dude, but he was so convinced with that. And you couldn't tell him any other way. He only wanted to investigate there. He talked to people by their name. He changed the way he dressed when we were there for the period. It was kind of weird looking back on it. But we did get a lot of responses with EVPs, EMF spikes, atmospheric changes, everything like that. So he could have been a giant trigger object that maybe he was a person from back then.
Very true. Very true. Let's continue on with the audience questions here, because I know we got a couple more here that people would like to ask away. And, of course, my YouTube chat just jumps there for a second. Vinny is asking, going back to Ed and Lorraine Warren, do you think the Warrens were fear-mongers?
Yes, I do. I've said that many times. I've actually said that publicly, and it's not the most popular opinion. But also there was multiple cases that they worked that just simply weren't true. There was a lot of misconception, over dramatizing certain scenarios. Like the Amityville case is one of those, I believe. But almost every case that the Warrens worked was demonic, according to them. They wrote many books about it. And I think that's kind of laid the foundation for the current state of the paranormal genre that we're in now. And I think that the Conjuring films really push that over the edge, right? And I think that a lot of the networks out there and a lot of the TV shows take that as this huge overtone that their programs need to be similar to these films, and because they're based off of quote unquote real life events, true life events, that they think that it's going to sell or something like that. But I do think that the Warrens very much pushed the demonic thing very much, and I think there was a lot of fear associated with what they were doing.
Brendan, I want to ask you a couple times, and I'm not trying to stir paradrama here, but I do want to ask you, because a couple times you've mentioned stay away from Ghost Adventures. Is that a friendly competition? Merle's crying here because he has the biggest man crush on Zach Bagans. Okay,
that's not true. I'm just. Oh yeah, you can see that.
No, it's true. He has Zach Bagans pajamas. He does. When he comes up, when he comes up here to investigate, he shows them off. Okay. Anyways, but is it friendly competition, or is it meaningful on your end because you don't agree with the way they do things or the way they hype things up? Mm-hmm. Tell me about what you feel.
Well, first and foremost, I know Zach and Aaron. I've been on the show multiple times. I was on the show the first time in 2009, I believe. I think that's season 2. It's been a while, but I know the guys. I used to do a lot of location scouting for them as well. I got them into many locations here in California. But I do not agree with a majority of the way they conduct themselves or conduct their research. And I think a lot of it is fabricated, unfortunately. It goes back to the same thing with the Warrens, pushing that fear and pushing the demon thing. I mean, I don't think there's a place that Ghost Adventures has been to that wasn't haunted, which is pretty funny. I mean, the odds of that are improbable. But, it's not – I like Zach. He's a great person, one of the most brilliant businessmen out there. I think he's like the P.T. Barnum of the paranormal, He's got the museum. He's doing this whole thing. But research-wise, I think there's a major disservice there.
Is it harmful to the community?
Absolutely. 100%. People mimic it, unfortunately. And they go out there and they recreate it. They want to be like that. And sometimes these people are going into private residences, go into a family that's terrified, that have children. Who knows what kind of drug abuse, alcohol abuse, things like that are going on in these locations. And they go in with a spirit box and an obelisk, and it's all demons. And all of a sudden you have terrified people and a really huge problem. So I think it is detrimental to the field.
I won't even touch a residential investigation until they fill out a vigorous form of what's going on, why it's going on, and like their personal history. I need to know it because I'm not going to go into a house where there could be probable drugs or mental health and say that there's a demon and all these dark entities, because you just F their life up even more.
Absolutely.
And you're there to help them.
Yeah, no, that's
resources.
That's a vetting system that should be adapted by a majority of the field,
100%.
And the ethics and standards and protocols is something that needs to be adapted in the field. But unfortunately, a majority of people don't do that. They want to go out there, recreate what they see on TV, make a nice YouTube video at the cost of even people's personal lives. So it can be dangerous.
Factor. I can't do that.
Yeah.
I think I get overly pushy with finding out people's stuff before investigating.
I want to ask you, you created APRA, correct? APRA?
Correct. Yep.
Okay. We see a lot of teams out there who are all about territory, hoarding locations, or trying to see who's got the biggest Facebook group out there going. And Mike and I have talked numerous times about this regarding I always notice the top investigators in this field, they don't have a giant team. They don't have 20, 30, 100 members. They may have 2, may have 3, maybe 4 or 5. But they try and keep the inner circle very, very small. To me, and please correct me if I'm wrong, these smaller teams that are out there that are doing the work, that are advancing the field, seem to be getting more done than these giant weekend warrior teams that are just out there to take on as many cases as possible. Let's go get the evidence. Let's not do anything with it. But, man, did we have a good time, and we are that good. Look at our T-shirts.
Right. Yeah, no, you're right. The smaller groups that are doing, the factual research out there, it's a small group. I think at the most maybe 5, 6, with some of these, really tight-knit teams. And it's because they have a very well-rounded organization or a team where people are brought in for very specific reasons, and they're providing a very specific service to that organization, that team, whatever you want to call it. And I think that's where you get the best research and the most factual research. I think a lot of these teams out there that have, 10, 20 people is because they need to gather as many people as they can to make the location fee for all these big famous haunted locations that have been featured on a lot of these shows. And that it becomes a money game at that point sometimes. Merle,
your thoughts?
I keep my team small because just what he said. I keep it. I don't want so many cooks in a kitchen, so to speak. It sounds kind of arrogant, but I'm pretty particular in how I investigate. I'm like I've said it a couple times, very research history based. I don't care about phone apps. I don't care about K2s. I don't care about that stuff. I just want the history, the facts, and the research. I'll bring people into my team to help on certain investigations because there's a lot of independent researchers in Vancouver that are really good. But I find the more people you have, the more politics you have, the more competing you have, and I'm not about that. I just beat to my drum, head down, and do my thing.
Mm-hmm. But, Brandon, let me ask you, would you sooner investigate with one of these mega teams, or do you prefer to go in with a smaller crowd? Maybe let's say you hooked up with Merle on a weekend for a ghost adventure somewhere. No pun intended. Would you prefer something along that lines, that it's more of an intimate atmosphere on the ghost hunting, or is it fun going with these mega groups?
You have to control the environment as much as possible. So a smaller team is going to do that. So, obviously we can't completely control the environment of a location we're investigating, but you want to control that as much as possible. And the smaller the team, the better. Cutting down on contamination, making sure that you know exactly what's going on in and around the building at all times, getting the environmental readings, making sure you're documenting all that, running everything on a time code, knowing exactly what's natural, what's not natural. And that's something that will be achieved with a smaller team, not a larger team, because the more people, the more bodies in a location, the more contamination.
Right. And that's what I believe too, is in regards to that. For me, I don't like all the noise. Maybe it's because I get anxiety, but I don't like all the noise. I don't like, the screaming, the yelling, the stepping over each other. But then again, the amount of ghost hunts that I've actually done, I could probably count still on one hand, to be fairly honest. But to me, it just seems like, the social media aspect of trying to be the biggest, the best, and the powerful, and locking down locations, having locations sign contracts that you're the only team that can ever investigate there. I mean, what the hell are we doing? We're not curing cancer. We're not solving the world's problems. We're not sending people to the moon. We're ghost hunting, and you're going to lock down locations? I mean, that is just a jerk move. It is an arrogant jerk move.
It is. It's funny. I always the analogy I always had was it's like the expansion of the West, where someone's staking a claim, and you're the only one that could look for gold on this piece of land. And unfortunately, there's really no gold involved in what we're doing. So it's strange. It's really strange to see how people, how people conduct themselves in this space. It gets very, very odd. And, I've been in it for 16 years. 16 years I've been involved in the field, and it's gotten drastically worse over the years. And I think that there's just such a competitive state and a competitive nature for people wanting screen time, which completely defeats the purpose of what the whole basic fundamentals of the field should be. And that's trying to find the possible existence of a life after death.
Very true. We've got about 2.5 minutes here before we have to go to break at the top of the hour. We have from the hit television series Ghost Hunters, Brandon Alvis, and of course, the great Merle from the Paranormal Road Trippers as he shakes his head blushing. Stop, Dave, stop. But as we continue on here with the way it goes, Brandon, a lot of times on television, we see that we have to be a certain way. We have to dress a certain way. We have to act a certain way. We have to be a certain way. People have to be beautiful. People have to be thin. People, there's the whole television aspect of it. How real is television compared to what you do away from the television show?
It's not very realistic, with some of the personalities and things of that nature. Some of the way the cases are portrayed. Obviously, you're there for a significant amount of time. We're there for 5 days, sometimes even 2 weeks to do one single case, but you're seeing these very small little snippets of what really happened in the case, and it looks like it all happened in one day and one night in an investigation. So it's tough because, you got to fit 42 minutes of a TV show, but you're actually there for 5 days. So it can be tough. But, for me, and speaking for me only, I conducted myself the way I always have. I went out there and I did the same type of research I've been doing since 2006 and before that even. And I was very lucky to have that platform with Ghost Hunters and being able to go out there and just show the type of research that I'm passionate about and what I think the field should be and how the field should be conducted.
When we come back, guys, let's hit up Brandon for what he hates about the paranormal. What do you hate about it? Why not? Let's stir it up a little bit. We know we've had a lot of fun with him tonight. He shared some stories, shared some great techniques. But what does Brandon hate about the paranormal? I think we all have that upset moment, and sometimes it's fun. I'm not saying something serious, but just something that just irks you. That, it's like that itch you can't scratch that you just wish would go away. We're going to find out when we come back on Spaced Out Radio as we do Ghosts of the Great White North mid-month, every month, with our good friend Merle from the Paranormal Road Trippers. To me, he is one of the best Canadian investigators going in the paranormal world right now. He's got good tight hair, high and tight, very cut nice. Brandon Alvis from the hit television series Ghost Hunters. We have these gentlemen for another 30 minutes on Spaced Out Radio. Then we're going to the SOR Newswire. Then the thought of the day, hour 3 of Spaced Out Radio, coming up next. All right, gentlemen, I'm just going to run my dogs out one more time. You guys chat away to the YouTube crowd.
All right. Yeah, no, I've been on Ghost Adventures a few times, and I like Zach. He's a really nice guy. You know what I mean? He's a very nice dude. So it's funny though, but I don't agree with the research on a lot of it. And I've actually even supplied them some equipment over the years as well, which is pretty funny. But he's a really nice guy, very smart businessman, that's for sure.
Oh, I could see that. The show's very Ed and Lorraine Warren-esque.
Oh yeah,
demons, so many dark things. Like the Manresa Castle. I think a lot of those stories were a little embellished. I'll use that word.
Mm-hmm.
We investigated there 2 years ago now, and talked to the locals there, and a lot of the stories were hammed up for the show. But that comes par with the course, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. It's tough sometimes. Their first 3 or 4 seasons was really, really good.
Mm-hmm.
It was unique, you know what I mean, and had that raw style to it, whereas a bunch of guys that really didn't know what they were doing, going out there and having these experiences. That was fun, but then it turned into, I think where we are today, it's turned into a whole new show. So
you chase the dragon, so to speak. You want that hit of the evidence, but then when you're not getting it, or if it's the same evidence, it gets repetitive. So you need to bring in ITC, research devices,
right?
Because they sound cool.
Yep.
And then you have to bring in your Ovulist with the preloaded dictionary, because that'll spit out words that are pretty cool, right. and so forth.
It makes it a lot easier to build a narrative.
Yes, very much so.
Yeah. So I see what they're doing. It's tricks in the bag, you know. It's what it is, and not my style of research. And I think it's detrimental to the advancement of the field, especially from a scientific perspective. If we want to step out of the shadow of pseudoscience, it's going to be a tough one. It's a large looming shadow. So
yeah, I think I've been investigating for probably as long as you. I would consider myself more old school. Like, right. I like the old proper research evidence. I look up to David Weatherly and Ross Allison quite a bit.
Ross is awesome, dude.
Yeah, I was just on a podcast previous to this with Ross.
No way. That's
today.
Awesome.
I had him up last year to Barkerville. It's that town I was talking about earlier. Right. Him and a couple of his team members came up and spent the weekend with me and my team, and we hit it up hard. It was good.
Yeah. I've spoken with him a few times at Preston Castle in Ione, California. So I've met him, I think, 4 or 5 different times. I think the first time I met him was probably about 5 years ago or so.
He's a good dude, straight shooter. That's what I appreciate about him.
Yeah, he's cool, man. He's a good guy.
His museum's cool. I've checked his museum out before too, the one in Seattle.
Right.
That was nice. So, but yeah, no, he was supposed to come up last year, but COVID hit, so I had to cancel the investigation that we had. And then I have a handful more for this summer, or the invitations. Then if COVID goes away, then maybe it'll work out. So
right.
Yeah. There's a big, rich environment up here of places to investigate that are literally untouched.
That's awesome, man.
I'd say every year we hit about 3 or 4 brand new ones, because that's what we do. We just want the history before they're tarnished. Because once we go word of mouth, then other people go, and then it's not as special.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, Ross has been up to Dave's before. We investigated that 108 Mile Ranch up there too a couple years ago when Dave had his Paracon, which was fun. Talking about your Paracon, Dave.
Oh yeah, we got to do that again eventually. By the way, I'm talking to Bima tomorrow.
Okay.
Yeah. The Bigfoot story. So earlier last fall, we set up at that site a gifting site and brought some toys and everything up there. And my buddy Mark, his daughter put a nickel, an old 1960s worn-out nickel, on a rotted-out tree that had fallen down years ago. And anyways, long story short, go back the next weekend, that nickel is gone. Now, reality could be a squirrel, chipmunk, raven, crow, any type of bird. But the weird part was we went back the following week, and we found a nickel. And it was a different nickel. It was a 2019 nickel that was sitting on top of that.
Whoa.
Yeah.
That's strange.
Now, I sent this to a scientist friend of mine, Bob McGuire. Brilliant man. He's got his name on 20 satellites in space. And he's like, Dave, you're not seeing the reality of what that is. I said, what's that? He goes, people put things in safe places. Like, you're not going to put your cell phone hanging off the edge of your desk. You're going to put it in the middle of the desk so it doesn't fall. Rain, wind, snow would knock that nickel off if a person put it there. So, what was it? Don't know.
That's strange.
Yeah.
That's very strange.
Yeah. We got 30 seconds. I want to remind everyone, Geraldine Orozco from The Spiritual You has a free expo this weekend on Saturday, the 23rd. Starts at 7 a.m. Pacific, 10 a.m. Eastern, called the Higher Self Expo, featuring Geraldine, Daniel Winter, Lori Ladd, and Zane Daniel. It is free. All you got to do to sign up is go to higherselfexpo.com, and we're going to get going with Hour 3, guys, right now. Third and final hour of Spaced Out Radio is now underway. My name is Dave Scott. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us. We really do appreciate earning your listening ears. We want to thank everyone listening in on our terrestrial affiliates around North America and digitally on TalkStream Live, KPNL, and Revolution Radio. Remember, all of our archives are free when you go to youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. The only thing I ask for in return, hit that subscribe button. The Desert Clam has set the password for tonight in the SOR Space Travelers Club. What do you got for us, Club? We got Uvaloid. Uvaloid is your password. Use it wisely, Space Travelers, as the Clam sets the password each and every night right here on Spaced Out Radio. Our website is spacedoutradio.com, where we have a plethora of features for you, including rocking out to Bumblefoot and reading up on Captain Shirk's SOR Newswire. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio and on Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show. For the final time tonight, we have our good friend Merle back from the Paranormal Road Trippers outside of Vancouver, British Columbia for Ghosts of the Great White North. And our special guest tonight, Brendan Alvis. You probably recognize his name and his hat from the great television show Ghost Hunters. Gentlemen, welcome back.
Thanks, Dave.
Not a problem.
Half hour. Quick.
Very quick show. Very quick. Brandon, what bugs you about the paranormal? What bugs you? What's your top three, my friend?
There's a few. One thing that always sticks out is people that purchase buildings for paratourism, or something I call paratourism, that they buy a building that's old, it's creepy, and they create their own history and lore associated with that place, and they sell it like that. And you go to a local historical society, like we were talking about all night, and talk to them about that building and what the people owning that building are selling to the public, and you find out it's not factual. So a lot of misinformation. That's one thing in the field that's prominent right now, is misinformation, and people using that misinformation to their advantage, or what they think their advantage is. Also, staking up claims, territory. That's another one. We talked about that earlier as well. I've actually heard of people signing contracts with locations where no one else can go into these places. That's something I've actually heard of.
Here.
They do that down here too. Yeah, it happens.
Power flex. It's like, okay, buddy, you go have your places.
Right. And another thing that always sticks out is if you disagree with someone about, just the fundamentals of research or the way to conduct yourselves, if they don't like that you do things a certain way, there's always a clique associated with it, and it becomes a larger problem because there's various paranormal networks out there now. Everyone's got their Facebook pages and their group pages, and if they don't like you and the way you conduct research, there's a lot of not really blacklisting per se, but a lot of negative talk about people for their own beliefs, which we're all entitled to our own beliefs, our own opinions, and that's what should make this field fun in a certain way, is talking about ideas like we have tonight, talking about theories, what are the possibilities. But some people out there just, they want to believe it their own way, and if you don't believe, you're not part of their group.
Mm-hmm. How about for you, Merle? What's your top three?
Oh, top three? I don't like how it's funny you bring up the contracts, because I was gonna be like, I'm not gonna say it about teams going to locations, presenting contracts of like being exclusive to places. I think that's stupid, because I think if my team went into Dave's house for an investigation and Brandon's team goes into Dave's house for an investigation and we get an array of different evidence, why not those two teams be able to talk about their research and see what they've captured and go forward like that, to see like maybe my team was missing something or Brandon's team was missing something, where we plug that hole and we could actually solve something for you, instead of, hey Dave, you have to sign my contract so nobody else comes here. I'm coming bi-weekly, because teams do that. They'll have like set times they come. That's number one. And number two is just the drama. Like, at the end of the day, we're sitting in a dark room talking probably to nothing a lot of the time. I'm all about the para-unity, and I back that up. A lot of the teams don't like that sort of thing. So it's more or less just the drama. Be an adult and do your research and have fun at the end of the day. There you go. There's three.
I would say my top three would be people who have no idea what they're doing with their evidence. And I've learned that from this show. Well, what do you do with your evidence? Well, we collect it. What do you do? Well, we go over the evidence. Well, what do you do with it afterwards? What do you mean? Well, do you have a storage database that you can shop and compare with others or other hauntings that the evidence is simple? Number two, what are you trying to solve? It's amazing how many people in the ghost community cannot answer that question. What are you trying to solve? And number three, I hate people who cry for paranormal unity, yet they're the first ones on social media to be bashing everyone and their dog. Can't stand that. Can't stand that. And
I have one more. I have a bonus one, Dave.
oh, bonus one.
Yeah, bonus one.
Go ahead.
Number one, you win because you had the best top three. Number two, cell phone apps.
Oh, Brandon, do you have a bonus one as well?
I'll agree there. Cell phone apps, man, that's a tough one there, and that's plaguing the field right now. That's something you see all the time. Another one is not controlling your environment and not going through and doing baseline readings. That's another thing. And you see a lot of times with these groups doing these Facebook live streams, YouTube live streams, and they have their K2 meters going off, but they're using Wi-Fi and they're using their cellular network. That's exactly what's setting off your equipment. So that's another pet peeve.
I think my bonus one would be the use of the word science. 98% of the investigators out there have not conducted a scientific experiment since high school. So when I hear a group, all of a sudden, you know, if I see the post or if we've had them on the show, I'll even forewarn paranormal groups, if you use the word science, I'm hanging up, because I know already you're not conducting anything scientific. You know, we have to stop hiding behind science and the word science and opinion when we're not actually conducting any scientific experimentation. You know, otherwise we would have solved the riddles of Gettysburg and Waverly Hills and Alcatraz already. We would have solved it if everybody was conducting these scientific experiments. At least that's my thinking. Some people may call me a jerk for that, but it is what it is. Let's get to a question from our audience here. PBR is asking, Brandon, what's your thoughts of using a Ouija board during investigation to communicate?
I think it's no different than using a digital voice recorder or any other medium that you're using to try and communicate with entities, ghosts, whatever you want to call them. It's all about a person's intention and what they're trying to do. So using a piece of wood and a plastic planchette or a metal planchette is not going to be any different than going in there and trying to communicate with other devices.
Merle, I know you're a fan of the Ouija board.
Yeah, it's all about experimentation, but I find a Ouija board, the best way I sum it up, it's just an old-fashioned spirit box. You don't know who you're communicating with. You don't know what's coming through on the board or the spirit box. There is no caller ID when you do that. A lot of teams do use it as a tool. Would I consider a Ouija board hard evidence? No. Would I consider it something to try? Sure, why not? That's my opinion on it.
All right. I think that they are a tool of communication. I do not believe they're evil. I see no difference between that, a pendulum, reading tea leaves, tarot cards, using ghost boxes, or anything. I think it's the exact same thing. It's just history is giving it a name, and that can be difficult for some. That is all. Brandon, out of all the places that you have investigated, erase those from your memory for a second. But what's your dream location? If ghost hunters gave you the opportunity to say, we're going to give you 2 weeks to investigate anywhere in North America that you want, where are you going and why?
Ooh, I would probably go outside of North America. I'd probably go to the Tower of London. Is a location that's always been on my list. Location I think that would provide some significant data. The history associated with that location is unbelievable, very bloody. I think the Tower of London would probably be that location for sure.
Okay, how about here, though? How about on this soil?
Eesh, okay, here in the States, let's think about that really quick.
You can come to Canada, too, just so you know. I know we're the cold neighbors in the Arctic here.
That's such a tough question. Here in the States, man. The White House. The White House would be another one. So, that would be one it's dripping with history. So,
one of George Bush's daughters actually semi-talked publicly about how haunted the White House was when she was living there when Dad was president. And she has never talked publicly about it since. I believe there is actually, and maybe, you might know better than me, but I actually believe that there is one of those unwritten codes that the ghosts of the White House is something that you're literally not allowed to talk about.
Right. One of my favorite stories about ghosts in the White House is an experience that Winston Churchill had. It's a story that's been passed down a lot, but one thing Winston Churchill always loved to do was take a hot bath, drink brandy, and smoke a cigar. And apparently he was getting into his bath, staying in the Lincoln bedroom, forgot his brandy in the bedroom, walked in naked, and saw Abraham Lincoln standing at the fireplace. And apparently Winston Churchill looked over and said, "Sir, I believe you have me at a disadvantage."
That's where that quote comes from.
Yes. I would, you know what, probably out of any location in the United States, that's the one I would like to do. Up here in Canada, if I could investigate anywhere, there's a battlefield from the War of 1812 right in between Niagara Falls and Toronto, I believe, or just north of Niagara Falls or east of Niagara Falls, somewhere around there. And apparently this battlefield has barely been touched. Thousands of people died there. It's like the Canadian Gettysburg, and nobody investigates there except one team. That's it. I would love to go there and just see, because apparently you could still hear the cannonballs being shot from there across the river there over into I guess that area is Buffalo. I believe it's Buffalo, or whatever town is on the other side of Niagara Falls. I guess it's Niagara Falls, New York. But you could actually still hear the cannonballs being shot over there. It's apparently just an incredible place. Or the ghost ships of Halifax in Nova Scotia. That would be cool. But one of the places that I've heard in Canada that has never been investigated, and if somebody's out there listening, please correct me if I'm wrong, would be the tunnels that during the times when there were still slaves in the United States, they would smuggle African American slaves that were rescued through the tunnels to go into New Brunswick and Nova Scotia. Now those tunnels are apparently still there, I would love to get into there. That would be amazing. You imagine what you would get out of there? I mean, that would have to be happy times for a lot of cool people, man. So I think that would be cool. Continuing on here, as we have Merle from Ghosts of the Great White North, and we have Brandon Alvis from Ghost Hunters here tonight from the Great Television Show. As we got about 9 minutes left, Brandon, I don't usually talk technology, but you're a tech guy. Where do you see technology going, say, in the next 5 years when it comes to ghost hunting?
Well, man, it's such a rapid growth going on right now. I mean, technology is so much more accessible, and it's growing exponentially. But again, this whole situation that we've been in and testing this, what we call the paranormal photon theory with the EMCCD camera, the photon camera, I mean, that's just scratching the surface of what we'll probably see in the next 5 years. So who knows what's going to be out there. But the more we're testing this photon theory with barometric pressure and environmental conditions and changes, hopefully one day we can adapt a device from these other technical industries that can put all that together in one place for us, all based on a time code to really know what's happening in the environment in a location we're investigating. So, but there's something to photon events and places that are reported to be haunted. What that exactly is right now, we're not sure. I'm working on that with Dr. Harry Clore right now, and it's one of the theories we're working on and actively testing in the field. So the next 5 years should be very interesting, that's for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Being a seasoned investigator, clearly, our industry is getting very saturated, like you said earlier. Now, with new people coming in every day, what is a piece of advice because a lot are listening right now, what is a piece of advice you could give them, and what is a good starter pack of gear you could tell them to get instead of cell phone apps and obviouses?
Well, first and foremost, before you actually step foot into the field to do active field research, read as much literature as you possibly can on the subject from different aspects, from different belief systems. Figure out what your purpose is in the field. What are your protocols, your methodology, your ethics? What are you trying to do? Go out there with a digital voice recorder and a digital camera. Very simple. These are great pieces of equipment that can be tested by a third party. You get something that you believe to be an EVP, you can have that tested by an audio engineer. Break it down through spectrum analysis. Is it a stray radio frequency, stray cell phone frequency? Is it something that can be naturally explained? Same goes for video evidence. Get yourself a nice video camera, have that analyzed, but first and foremost, always open up your evidence and your data to third-party scrutiny and really know if you're dealing with something natural or something you can't explain.
Fair enough. I send a lot of my clips to Ross. He's my third party. Now, audio recording. What's your take on cell phone audio recording versus a real audio recorder? I get that question a lot.
Well, some of the cell phones have actually really nice microphones in them now. If you're going to use a cell phone, make sure it's in airplane mode when you use it, or no SIM card in it. Completely get rid of the cellular device, inside of the phone if you're going to go that route. But I always recommend, the highest quality audio recorder you can find. Zoom makes really great products for cheap. It's all about the bit rate. It's about the information, the data associated with the bit rate and the recording. The more data, the more you can analyze it, and the more an audio engineer can really break that down and give you explanations. Or, hey, maybe say you have something that they can't explain.
Here's a nerd question for you. What's your bit rate set up on your Zoom recorders? I assume?
I love Zoom, but I'm actually not using Zoom at the moment. Oh. I've been actually running all my EVP through a digital audio workstation.
Oh,
so
cool.
That's what I've been doing that more often than not. It's way more of a pain to set up, a lot more equipment, a lot of cable to run. But that's what we've been doing recently, is using condenser microphones, actually trying different types of microphones, omnidirectionals, ambisonics, and running that into a digital audio workstation. And we're actually having multiple floors, having multiple sections, and that's been working really well for us lately.
Awesome.
I want to jump in here for a quick second, Merle, if you don't mind. We see a lot of amateur sleuths and ghost hunters out there. People are tech geeks, okay? And there's nothing wrong with that, but there's a certain crowd of people that always have to have the latest and greatest, whether if it means they have to delay their rent for a month or whatever, and it can get really out of hand. You being a tech guy, Brandon, who gets to play thanks to television, who's covering the bills for all of this gear, you get to play with some of the latest and greatest technology out there. But is it necessary? Is it necessary for the person who is a weekend warrior to go spend $1,000, $2,000, $5,000 on a FLIR camera? Because the prices, like anything, get exorbitant. I remember asking David Weatherly this same question, as well as John Tenney and others who are pretty respected in this field, and they're like, you don't need all of that. A lot of that stuff is really cool, and people are using it, but they're not paying for it. The networks are. And I think there has, if you could explain, what am I trying to say here? If you could explain that you don't need it to be a quality ghost hunter. Am I
right,
correct?
You don't. Yeah, you're 100% correct. You don't need the latest and greatest. And a lot of times there's people out in the field that are utilizing these, pieces of equipment like a FLIR thermal imaging camera, top of the line FLIR thermal imaging camera, and they're not even using it properly. So that's another thing is, first and foremost, audio data, visual data. You don't need to go out and have a $5,000 FLIR thermal imaging camera. You can have a very nice HD camera that has infrared and UV capabilities, nice audio recorders, and understanding the mechanics behind how these devices work, making sure you're using them properly. That's what they should be doing first and foremost. Instead of overextending yourself, knowing how the equipment you have readily available works, how it properly works, and again, always talking to a professional from a technical industry. So if you're running audio, talk to an audio engineer. Ask them what the proper settings are, how to use it properly. Talk to a filmmaker, a video engineer. How do I run this camera properly? What are the settings? I think that should be looked at more than, I need the latest and greatest, and something people aren't using. So it has to be, know how to use your equipment, don't overextend yourself, and make sure that you're running it properly.
If you weren't part of the television show using this heavy-duty, expensive equipment, what would be in your briefcase going to an investigation?
Very simple. Motion detectors, digital voice recorders, a couple of 4K night vision cameras, and data loggers. That would be it.
Like a data logger, like one of those EDI Plus things?
Yeah, EDI Plus,
Yep.
Which I think is, again, not too expensive. It's readily available and actually gives a lot of data. And it's actually taking the field in a really great direction, is now people are starting to actually look at the environmental conditions associated with these locations. And that's something that's really hasn't been looked at a lot. And it's nice to see, it's very refreshing to see that people are actually starting to collect that data and trying to cross-analyze it.
I agree.
So for the first timer out there, let's say I've never done this before. What would you recommend me to start out with? Or anybody out there in listener land who believes that, their neighbor's house is haunted and they want to prove that it's haunted.
Right.
What do you
I would have
out?
to say a digital audio recorder. Simple as that. It gives a lot of information. Not only can you go into a location, you can, if you do get something unexplainable, say you do get an EVP, you get the most information that way. The person's gender, their age, possibly their name, where they come from. You can get a lot of information that way, but you can also have it tested. You can really have that broken down through spectrum analysis and really start to understand how the device works and what is something that's natural and what's something that's unexplainable.
Brandon, quickly, as we got about 20 seconds left, tell everybody where they can find your new YouTube documentary that you're doing.
You can find us on YouTube under Formula of a Haunting, but you can also go to my website, brandonjalvis.com. It's the first video right there on the homepage. You can find it all on my website.
Right on. Merle, thank you so much for an amazing Ghost of the Great White North, buddy. We'll talk to you next month. And Brandon, thank you so much. If you don't mind, let's not wait 4.5 years before we do this again.
No, it's been a pleasure. It'd be great to talk to you guys again.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. Brandon Alvis from the hit television series Ghost Hunters, and of course, our man, myth, and legend Merle from the Paranormal Road Trippers. We'll talk to him next month on Ghosts of the Great White North. Coming up next, we have the SOR Newswire. We have the Thought of the Day, a jam-packed final half hour of Spaced Out Radio next. Good job, boys.
Awesome. Thanks, guys.
That was a lot of fun. A lot of fun, man.
Awesome, guys.
Yeah. Brandon, thank you, man. You take care, and really proud to see where you've grown, man, from the first time we met until now. It's really impressive. Really impressive. And honestly, I think you're one of the good dudes out there, man, and keep up the fantastic work, and please stay in touch.
I appreciate it, guys. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right.
All right.
Merle,
Bye-bye.
Merle, thank you as well, buddy.
All right.
Yeah. You want to give a shout-out to the YouTubers out there?
Hi, YouTube. How's it going?
Merle, everyone. Merle.
That was a Merle line. How's it going?
Yeah.
Next month we have another good guest, which I'll announce the next day or two.
Absolutely. I think it's going to be great. Merle, I gotta run here because I have to obviously get ready for the news here. But thank you for a great show, buddy.
All right, goodbye.
All right, buddy. Well, I'll call you tomorrow. Okay.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye.
It's Merle, everyone. Merle. 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 I know he's still listening. Merle. Merle. All right. We got the news set. Some pretty weird shit in here tonight, to be honest with you. For the news, that is. Not in the studio. Oh, goodness, I'm going to move this over here. Give me 2 seconds, guys. Merle. All right, there we go. Oh. Hey, Murray, thank you so much for that wonderful super chat, man. Really do appreciate the love and support. Thank you to Vinster and to Raz Grizz as well for the awesome super chats tonight. Really do appreciate the love and support that each and every one of you give us each and every night here on the show, man. Couldn't do it without you. Could not do it without you. Geraldine Orozco, thank you for the reminder, Human Carl. Geraldine Orozco this weekend on Saturday the 23rd will take you on a journey with her and her friends as we embody the physical, mental, and emotional aspects of the 0 Point. You can attend the Higher Self Expo for free. It features Geraldine, Daniel Winter, Lori Ladd, and Zane Daniel. Registration is free. All you got to do is go to higherselfexpo.com. That's higherselfexpo.com. It starts at 7 a.m. Pacific time, 10 a.m. Eastern. Once again, it is entirely free, and I would love to see our listeners go in there and support Geraldine. I absolutely love the lady. She works so hard. She's a good friend of this show, and you know what? If you're not busy on Saturday, go check it on out. It's free. What's the worst thing that could happen? It's free. Not cost you anything. It's free. Hey, Raul. How you doing, buddy? Sovereign Farts. Good to see you. Gil's on the Aqua Velva tonight. Merle. Oh, Merle out. See that? Merle out in the chat room. All right, we got less than a minute here. Got less than a minute. Damn you, cords, you make me laugh. Maybe Gil's on the Brute 33. I don't know. Love you too, Gilbert. Jenny, just go to the website, which is higher. Hold on, let me grab it here quick. Rounded third. We're heading for home tonight on Spaced Out Radio. I am your host, Dave Scott. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us. Really do appreciate it. Want to remind you that if you missed most of this show or others, check out our free archives by going to youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Just do me the favor, hit that subscribe button. Our website is spacedoutradio.com, where we have a plethora of features for you, including rocking out to Bumblefoot and reading up on Captain Shirk's SOR Newswire. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio and on Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show. Speaking of the news, let's do this, shall we? End of every show where we get to the weird, the strange, the wacky, and sometimes the outright strange. I don't know if you saw this incredible video footage from a jet aircraft taking off, an airliner taking off in the United States. This video footage captured by a passenger from a plane shows what the passenger reckons may have been a UFO zooming past them as they just took off, with the clip showing the pilot apparently dodging something in the sky. The Singapore Airlines flight, it wasn't in the U.S., it was in Switzerland, happened as the flight was heading to Zurich Airport on January 17th. At some point between 7:30 a.m. and 7:50 a.m., the unnamed passenger had turned on their camera in preparation to record the plane's landing into Zurich, but was surprised when he captured what he believes was a near collision with a UFO. In the clip, we see the lakes and fields of the distant Swiss landscape before the aircraft begins to tilt to the right. A small white object then suddenly zips past the plane just below its flight path. According to reports, the pilot followed safety protocol as the plane's engines roared while passengers began to panic. Thankfully, the pilot managed to avoid the unidentified flying object and later made a safe landing at the airport. Now, earlier this month, a UFO expert said he believed clock is ticking on new revelations that could have worldwide significance. The Brillo pad hair dude, Nick Pope, explained that this task force, the UAP task force, set up by the U.S. government, is prepared to share some findings within the next 180 days, or at least they have to. We're going to see. Pope goes on to say, a response is due within 180 days of the enactment of the COVID-19 relief bill because the bill contained the Intelligence Authorization Act where the UFO requirement was articulated, but the U.S. Department of Defense has known since June of the committee's request, and the U.S. Navy's Unidentified Aerial Phenomena Task Force is probably already working on drafting a response. Interesting. That video is cool. You can find it online. Now, how do you kill something that may not exist? Or maybe supernatural? Well, believe it or not, there is a new bill to establish a Bigfoot hunting season that was introduced in Oklahoma. Representative Justin Humphrey wants Oklahoma Wildlife Commission to establish a Bigfoot hunting season. Humphrey represents a large part of southeastern and south-central Oklahoma that is infamous for Bigfoot sightings. They even host a Bigfoot festival every year. This year's activities, though, were canceled due to COVID-19. The Oklahoma Wildlife Conservation Commission shall promulgate rules establishing a Bigfoot hunting season. The commission shall set annual season dates and create any necessary specific hunting licenses and fees. Let's check out the bill, because there is a link to this. All right? Section 1, new law, a new section of law to be codified in the Oklahoma statutes as Section 5-603 of Title 29, unless there is created a duplication in numbering, and the Oklahoma Wildlife Conservation Commission shall promulgate. Okay, we read that. That's it. That's all that's there. Oh, this act, by the way, would come into effect November 1st of this year. It'll be interesting to see if this gets passed. It really will be. Who knows? Maybe this is just the way we can, if it is a flesh and blood creature, that we can actually prove its existence. I don't know. All right. Who knows how to use a garage door opener? Put your hands up. A 23-year-old woman in Ohio has died after a tragic accident involving a parking garage. Victoria Strauss's head became trapped between her car and a payment machine when she dropped her card at a parking garage exit booth in Columbus. Police say they responded to the scene around 5:40 in the morning after a security guard reported the mishap. A statement from the police said the accident occurred around 11:37 p.m. the previous night. Footage shows Strauss trying to exit the garage at that time. Police said Strauss accidentally accelerated as she opened the door to get her card, and the car collided with the payment kiosk, trapping her head between the car door and the door frame. She was pronounced dead at the scene. Well, of course she was pronounced dead at the scene. The poor lass. Oh, what a way to go. And you know, we've all made that stupid mistake too, where instead of putting our vehicle in park, we just like, oh, well, I could quickly do this. My foot's on the brake, and then our foot slips. That poor girl. Poor girl. Oh, man. Here's one for a few of our audience members. They'll enjoy this. The first dinosaur butthole, yes, butthole, ever discovered is shedding light where the sun don't shine. The discovery reveals how dinosaurs used this multi-purpose opening, scientifically known as a cloacal vent, for pooping, peeing, breeding, and egg laying. Yes, we officially have a dinosaur's butthole. The dinosaur's derriere is so well preserved that you can't squeeze the Charmin. The Charmin, people. You can't squeeze it. You're not getting it, are you? Anyways, let's move on. Yeah, the butthole was discovered as shedding light. The discovery reveals how dinosaurs did the bathroom thing. The derriere is so well preserved, researchers could see remnants of two small bulges by its back door. Great, it had hemorrhoids. I wonder if dinosaurs had preparation H, which might have housed musky scent glands. Oh, that's what they're calling hemorrhoids in dinosaurs now. That the reptile possibly used during courtship. That's right. Fart on your partner, get them aroused. An anatomical quirk also seen in living crocodilians, said scientists who studied the specimen butthole. Although the dinosaur's caboose shares some characteristics with the backsides of other living creatures, it also is a one-of-a-kind opening. The researchers found the anatomy is unique, study lead researcher Jakob Vinther said. Why did he say this? He says it doesn't quite look like the opening on birds, which are the closest living relatives to dinosaurs. It does look like the back of a crocodile, he said, but it's different in some ways, known as a cloaca, shaped in its perfect, unique way. Great, we're going to tease the cloaca now. The well-preserved booty belongs to the dinosaur Pistaco. This is a taco. Pistacosaurus, a bristly-tailed Labrador-sized horn-faced dinosaur. In other words, it was ugly, couldn't get a date, so it had to fart on its male or female partners for potential breeding. Yeah, it lived between 145 million to 65 million years ago. Previously, Vinther and his colleagues had studied the specimen found in China to determine its skin color, and at the time they didn't realize that they were looking at the butthole. Then I got a chance to look at the specimen up close and personal. Gave it a little whiff. Oh my, the cloaca is actually quite well preserved, and we can actually see some anatomy that I didn't think we could see. So he took a closer look and smell with study co-researchers Robert Nichols and Diane Kelly, an expert on vertebrae penis. Oh my goodness, Diane. She studies penises and copulary systems on dinosaurs out of the UMass Amherst. None of the reproductive soft tissue, like the penis, were preserved. So the researchers can't say whether the dinosaur was male or female. Apparently it's non-binary. Even so, the dinosaur likely had copulatory sex, unlike some birds that bump butts when they do a cloacal kiss during reproduction. I don't want this story to end. This is legally me saying butthole for reasons that we can. Butthole. Moving on. Somewhere out there, Captain Shirk is killing herself laughing. She can't find her glasses to actually see the chat rooms, but she's laughing. Thank you, our news guru, Captain Shirk. Finding a suitable partner can often feel like life and death struggle. Let's ask Gil in the chat room. But sometimes the stakes are really high. Let's take the springbok mantis, for instance, has acquired a particularly brutal reputation for sexual cannibalism. The female mantis consumes the male prior to, during, or after copulation. In a study published in the Biology Letters journal, scientists provide a gruesome update on the mechanism's evolutionary purpose. Prior to this study, scientists didn't understand why sexual cannibalism would benefit the mantis from an evolutionary standpoint. This research shows that the male mantis has taken to fighting back, occasionally avoiding becoming his female partner's next meal and allowing the cycle to continue. Among sexually cannibalistic species, males typically bear the greater evolutionary burden. We always do. But to put that bluntly, female cannibals can bulk up on nutrients and increase their chances of survival by consuming dead males. Dead males cannot reproduce. Moreover, female springbok mantises, maybe they're from space, we don't know, can asexually reproduce from unfertilized eggs in the process known as facultative parthenogenesis. Male mantises, by the way, need female mantises to pass on their genes, but the need is not so great for females. Great, another woman doesn't want a man. We just get kicked out of everywhere. It turned, by the way, it is the evolutionary beneficial for the female mantis to consume her potential partner because he didn't pick up the tab when they went to the insect bar. More than 60% of encounters between female and male mantises, why aren't they called manti, result in cannibalism. In order to maximize their chances of survival, male mantises typically approach females cautiously, bearing gifts or attempting to mate with the female is already feeding. Yep. Anecdotally, scientists also have reported seeing fights break out between the male and female mantises. The study researchers want to study these violent mating behaviors in close laboratory settings. Please keep them away from the leather swings. Leather swings. An Alberta BMX rider broke a Guinness World Record with a 2,126.87-foot manual, a wheelie trick where the rider is not allowed to pedal while the wheel is off the ground. Good Ukrainian kid, Max Ganikovsky of Calgary, said he had long inspired to set a Guinness World Record before attempting his record-breaking manual, which broke the previous record of 1,112.2 feet. His wheel was off the ground for just under 2 minutes. It feels surreal. Being a Guinness World Record holder has always been one of my dreams, Ganikovsky said, and it feels great to have this dream come true. Now, Ganikovsky said the most important part of the trick is acceleration before the manual and making sure the wheel is lifted at the right moment as to not slow down the momentum. This manual skill is kind of very important for my sport, and I always do it every day when the weather is nice. You only have like 2 months of nice weather in Calgary, man. Good for you, because you ain't doing it in the snow. That's for sure. Oh, my goodness. A nude model has asked Pope Francis to bless her Playboy photos, hoping the pontiff will bring her success with her upcoming magazine cover. In a recent interview with the UK Daily Star, the OnlyFans model, who is set to appear on the cover of Denmark's Playboy, said she follows the Pope on social media. I follow Pope Francis on Twitter and feel at peace with his messages. Now, while the 23-year-old from Brazil may feel at peace, others called her out for the request. She says, I was told that my request was invalid and that I was too sensual to be able to follow something from Pope Francis. Despite the naysayers, she was at peace with her decision. Only God must judge. I agree with this young lady. Come on, Pope Francis. Give her a few of those. Just bless the photos. Bless the photos. That's all we need. Finally tonight, a lady named Alice took to Twitter to ask users how they shower after she started questioning whether or not she showers normally or not. And it created quite the debate. There's no wrong way or right way to shower, is there? Well, apparently this caused quite the stir. It's normal to shower with your back to the shower, not facing the water. Her question sparked a heated conversation between thousands of users, with many people saying how they shower depends on whether they're washing their hair or their body. Oh, you cannot face the water when you're washing your hair. You just can't. You get the soap in your eyes. You can't. One person said, depends if you're washing your hair or not, then it's back to shower when rinsing, otherwise face the shower, which subsequently baffled this person. I didn't know showering without washing your hair was even a thing. Another said, surely everyone faces away or the water when it goes in your face. Meanwhile, another person, always back to the shower, should never ever wash your face in there as most folks have the water too hot. I only ever spin around to rinse the suds off my boobs. I'm going to assume she was female. Her boobs. Another one said, I can't do either. I have to take the hose off and move over me. I can't handle water just falling above me. I am a freak. Yes, you are a freak. One other person, by the way, I don't like my face in the water at all unless I've had a terrible day. And you know that thing they do in the films where you put your hands on the wall and lean forward with your hair streaming down like you've just blown up an entire planet and need some time to think? To which one person replied, the only problem there is that there is often a psychopath watching you, waiting for a chance to strangle you with a stocking. But a few people said they do both. Oh, that's so music. Hold on. That's the one we want. How do you shower? Let the debate continue. Thought of the Dave happens every night at this time, where we ask a question on our Facebook and Twitter pages and read your responses on the air because we love the audience participation around here. Today's Thought of the Dave is as follows. What do you like about paranormal, UFO, and cryptid TV shows? Start out with Jules. Honestly, I don't watch them. After seeing one, I don't feel it necessary. I'm thankful that they get the topic out in the public consciousness, though. Mark, all the way from Australia. How's tomorrow looking? We get to find out new information in places I will never see in my lifetime. Alex, I like it when they pay us for participating as they should. Haunted history. Love the various footage, experience, and different methods people use to investigate. Also really like all the different theories and points of view. Anna, I love the mysteries and the questions they ask or inspire. John, only one thing, that is, so many new people are enjoying learning about these topics. Let's go to 13 Ballads. TV personalities, guests who know how to spin a good yarn. Nick, many shows send signals that UAP have nefarious intent. I think this is reckless and dangerous. I don't think most producers think any of this has any basis in reality. It's just a money game. The problem is it's not. Twin Rose, depends in the show. but the ones sticking to relaying encounters are better than the blank hunting shows. Why the encounter type shows? It gives people the courage to come forward. Chip, I will tell you what I don't like, Dave. The night vision cameras add 30 pounds to your appearance. I'm not that chubby. Thank you, Chip. Appreciate that. Let's continue on. And let's go to Tim. Too much of the same footage, renaming same shows. Example, Terror in the Woods. And These Woods Are Haunted is the same show. Shows laziness by the producers, no effort to spend for new productions. It's terrible. Debbie, nothing. The scripting, editing, and the ones that have been out showing the truth get shut down so they can bring in ones that will accept the changing it for the entertainment style. David, they actually educate the masses. Lori, some are interesting as to have me find and read more about the subject. Now, as to the shows, blah, the Hollywood types. If too slow, redo the script. Rather have them not make the crap up and just entertain. Jim, not much. Too much money at stake in television to have faith in what we see. I'll read or go to the podcast route. That Dave Scott guy is pretty good. Who's he? Scarlett, I don't really dig the UFO shows or guys running around haunted houses, but I like lost civilizations, histories, and ancient agendas. Danny, not a whole hell of a lot. They basically just cover the same old stories. Nothing new, nothing to get people with true interest in the subjects excited and wanting to come back for more. There's no substance. Teresa, I can relate. I'm not alone. Chris, the costumes, scripts, and characterizations. Thomas, one of my favorite shows was Project UFOs. Carrie gets the final word. I think if they get the public open to the ideas, but for those of us really studying the subject, it's kindergarten level versus a college course. Thank you to everybody participating in the Thought of the Day. We will do it all again tomorrow, so make sure you tune us on in, and you can put your questions on Facebook and Twitter at #SpacedOutRadio. And, of course, thank you to Captain Shirk for a wonderful newscast that included the word butthole, and to Merle from Paranormal Road Trippers at Ghosts of the Great White North, and our special guest, Brandon Alvis, talking ghosts all night long. We got Mr. Ron Bumblefoot Thal rocking in the background with Little Brother is Watching. Bumblefoot is the official music of Spaced Out Radio, rocking us in and out of every single show. Get your horns up for the guitar god himself. Special thanks to everybody listening in at work, at home, in your cars, wherever you may be. Thank you to everyone in our chat rooms tonight on YouTube, Spreaker, LGAB, Revolution Radio, Space Travelers Club, and on Twitter at #SpacedOutRadio. Thank you for playing along with us. Remember, this show is copyright by Spaced Out Radio and SOR Media Ventures Limited. Thank you so much for choosing to share your evening with us, because together, my friends,
we're watching.
We own the night. Mr. Bumblefoot. We need a favor. We need you to take us home. Yes, the Woo Train has docked for the night. Tomorrow, my friends, we shall ride again. Your seats are always available. Your tickets never expire. If you want to bring a friend, yep, we've got room for them too.